The hens won't lay and the hogs ain't slop, can't eat and sleep at night. The hounds keep a-barking at the moon all night. I guess that's just my fate. Seems like I'm always a dollar short and always one day late. Seems like I'm always a dollar short and always one day late. When I lose my appetite, that's when they fill my plate. When I put the coffee on, the pot won't percolate. Seems like I'm always a dollar short and always one day late. Every time I go fishing, it always ends this way. My friend says, you ought to come a little early. I caught him yesterday. I had to come early.
From Studio 401, it's the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on The Fringe FM. I'm Vance Nesbitt, and here's our headlines. Millions of pesky love bugs invade Florida. Twice a year, pesky invasive love bugs swarm Florida, splattering their gooey insides on car hoods, windshields, and even flying into people's mouths, and of course, annoying visitors at the happiest place on earth. In recent days, Florida social media users have been sharing video and photos of the annoying insects as the bugs descend on the state in which many people are calling the worst love bug infestation in years. Love bugs are an invasive species, also known as the honeymoon fly or double-headed bug. During and after mating, adults pair remain coupled, even in flight, for up to several days. And contrary to rumors, they were not genetically modified and then released by scientists as a way to rid Florida of mosquitoes. They don't even eat mosquitoes. Source, Geek.com. And a Bigfoot has been spotted in Pennsylvania. Culver, Pennsylvania. A man in Cambria County says he saw a creature he believes to be a Bigfoot. The 59-year-old retired man who provided his full name but opted to remain anonymous told Cryptozoology News last week that he was with his truck parking near the woods back in 2014 when the animal showed up. He's quoted as saying, "I was going hunting. I parked the truck and saw this thing come out of the woods," he said. The Culver resident claims the bipedal creature then walked down the road as it turned its head back to look at him. Quote, "It looked at me. It scared me so bad I was shaking." The man describes the animal as a black, 8-foot-tall primate. He estimates the weight at around 500 pounds. The sighting, he said, lasted a few minutes. The eyewitness did not present photographic evidence of the alleged encounter. Culver is an unincorporated community with a population of 1,000. Just a month ago, 2 women claimed to have seen a Bigfoot creature in Cambridge Springs, Pennsylvania. Source, Cryptozoology News. And the world's most depressing sports competition has coffins for prizes. The Julica Coffin Cup is not your usual futsal tournament. It's a competition between teams representing the 12 largest funeral houses in the Puno region of southeastern Peru. So it kind of makes sense that the main prize be something representative of the funeral businesses. Still, fighting for your heart out on the pitch for an expensive casket you have to share with 5 other teammates doesn't exactly sound worthwhile. But that didn't stop the winning team from parading their $1,300 luxury coffin on their shoulders and singing Ole Ole Champion at the end of the final match. Source, OddityCentral.com. And now for an informative and important fun fact. A pregnant goldfish is known as a twit. Thanks for listening to the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM. Again, I'm Vance Nesbitt, news anchor and sorcerer.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic at 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time
first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from atop a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. Welcome to Friday Night Open Lines. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the broadcast from the Fringe FM. It is Friday, May the 17th on into the 18th, and we're going to have our very special guest host, Jeff Harman, is with us tonight. And so this is something we're going to continue to do on Friday nights. Tonight it's Open Lines, and Jeff is with us, just like I said. So if you have a very strange or paranormal experience you'd like to share with us, call me at 1-800-588-0335. That's toll free from the United States or Canada. That's right. You Canadians are very welcome to call in. It's toll free. We got that number specifically so you guys don't have an excuse. And coming up also, we'll have the Riddler is going to give us the same riddle we did last night. From the Void, and if you call in and guess the answer, you will win a free Lighting the Void t-shirt, and you have to call in. So no texts, no emails, no messages. There's no way we're going to give away something like that and let you get away with just texting it in. I thought about that long and hard. So yeah, you got to call in. And it's kind of like, in my opinion, it's this. We should do this every week because to hear your stories is more important. I love having guests on, but I kind of like having a guest host with me too, and to hear from you and the listener and talk about what's going on and just kind of blow off some steam. And it's starting to kind of pick up steam here. So it's good to do these things on Friday night. And the audience and your stories and your experiences are where we get down to it. And when it comes to speaking the truth, and that's the bottom line. Jeff Harman is with me. Thank you, Jeff, for coming on again. I look forward to doing this, man, in the future, having you on a few times a month.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for having me on. It's great.
And people love you. I got a lot of good feedback from when you were on, from a lot of people. I had somebody even message me and say, look, I had to listen to that last episode you guys did 3 times to get all the information that you put out. So that was a first for me.
Yeah, well, that's great. Hey, let's be the tag team here on radio. I love it.
Right on. I got something for you, Jeff, to kind of validate all of the stuff. When it goes into astrology, there is a story here about an old 17th century documents that have been discovered that show astrological charts and ailments from people with apparently all kinds of ailments. So this guy, or these 2 doctors, scientists, Simon Foreman and Richard Napier, are well known for their ability to diagnose and treat ailments such as delirium, gonorrhea, bleeding, depression, all kinds of stuff and more from the positions of the stars. And Cambridge dug up these documents, and there's over 80,000 cases where people have been healed or diagnosed with certain things, and every single one of them has astrological charts on there. And they look like, from looking at these documents, they look like Eastern charts. They look like some stuff that you would, sidereal charts. And they were healing people, this stuff back then. So I'm wondering how in the hell we lost that. But yeah, that just validates all of the stuff that you've been talking about when it comes to astrology. I mean, they just dug this up.
Yeah. It's so fascinating because if you go back into actually I would say like 300 BC and before, there's a lot of evidence of medical astrology. And there's a whole body of stuff that came up in the medieval times in England, France, Italy. William Lilly is probably the better known astrologer, and he's actually one of the latest ones from the 1600s. He dedicates an entire chapter and many examples of not only diagnosing ailments, but also picking auspicious times to pick herbs and administer certain types of herbs. Like he would use the moon. Well, I have to tell a really fast story. So interesting. The moon. There's a chart in many of these medieval astrology, medical astrology, where you would cast a chart for the moment in time that someone breaks their mind about being ill, or a physician wanted to look at it. You can time the moon right when it's going to change the aggressiveness of the disease. You can actually see in these aspects if it's going to get better or worse, and they would actually administer herbs accordingly.
Wow.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, see, and I think for sure that there's something real to it. I hope we tap into this, man. Like I would like to bring this back. I just don't think it's possible, you know?
My mother was trying to do that. It's interesting because in the late 60s, I used to see this stuff sitting around the house, and I never thought anything of it. And she had tried to get it introduced. In fact, there were doctors in the 40s that had actually written an encyclopedia. In fact, I got right here on the shelf. It's actually the Encyclopedia of Medical Astrology. So it's not like it was an idea. It was a really solidified practice. And the pharmaceutical companies really took over in the late 40s, early 50s. And it's pretty tough. Yeah. Ayurveda astrology is all over India, and it still is.
Well, I was just wondering, like, how we lost that. I mean, this is almost, to me, would be considered documented proof that some of this stuff existed. I mean, that many cases, it's not a coincidence after a while. And just to think, like, if we could learn how to look at the planets. So this stuff we've been talking about all week. And speaking of the moon, you know that they've been saying that the moon is having earthquakes on it now. That's some pretty freaky stuff, but I don't see how the moon could have earthquakes. They're saying that it acts like the earth, like it's got plate tectonics. It's also having earthquakes. They also figured out how it's heating up. And there's a lot of stuff going on up there in space right now, I think, that they're not telling us about, and they're getting ready for their little space war and all this stuff. But
always has been.
Yeah, man. But the moon is incredible to me. I want to get David Adair on here to talk about it, but I just don't understand how the damn thing could be having earthquakes. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, didn't they say that it rung like a bell when they landed on it? Like it would just rattled?
Yeah, they bounce rocket fuselages off of it, and they say that it just reverberates. They've got seismic equipment up there.
Yeah, so see, then how could it have plates moving around on it? Some of this stuff, I really think sometimes they put, not this article about the medical stuff, but all these articles they bring out, I think that the media is kind of controlled a little bit, because there's, how many did I look at today? Like 5 or 6 different articles about all the different weapons that are coming out, which is another thing I think we're gearing up for. The U.S. Air Force deployed missiles that could actually, well, what do they have here? What is this thing? Okay, so the United States Air Force, they have this thing called the Champ, that can just annihilate anything. It doesn't matter if it's a missile, a plane, whatever it is. It can even shoot microwaves down into bunkers and stuff and take out all electronic equipment. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Then I keep flipping the page, and China unveils a terrifying new armored truck that launches swarms of killer drones to attack its enemies. And these are the same drones that we were looking at a long time ago that Elon Musk was warning people about, that it just launches out of 12 tubes off this Tiger vehicle. And these drones have like AI stuff in them, and they have some that detonate. They have some that do EMP stuff. And so it's all here now. And I can see a really crazy electronic super tech war coming. I mean, why are these articles coming out every day like this?
It could. We've got so much creepy stuff. I mean, when you look at psychotronic weapons, lasers, crowd control, I mean, it's pretty eerie what's out there. And they're deploying this stuff. It's not a theory. It's not on the drawing board. I hear it's been around for a long time. They were using that stuff back in the Iraq War in 2003.
Didn't you say we were about to come into a Saturn alignment that we haven't been in a very long time? That's kind of something to look out for?
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. In fact, I'm about to release a news article about that. I was poking around, going all the way back to like the 5th century, all the way up to now. And every time Saturn and Pluto join, there is some really heavy stuff. I mean, like major empires either fall or rearrangements. And just as an example, last century, World War I began, and Wilson sold the country to the bankers, right almost within 6 months or a year of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And they're not exact, but they're real close to being right on. And then we entered World War I. That, of course, ended. And then you had the Dust Bowl and the stock market crash of 29. That was right on the opposition. And then the final square brought us World War II. And, of course, Hitler fell after they built him up. And then the war ended. And now we're in another cycle. In fact, it's ending and a new one's beginning this January 12th. And that's why we're seeing all this posturing right now in the Middle East and Iran. I said on several radio programs, I think I said it on yours, that I really think this situation in the Middle East with Israel, Iran, and the whole rearrangement over there is a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
A lot of trouble.
I think we all kind of know something's coming. I just think this time it's not going to be, they can literally have a war, I think, that happens within the matter of minutes now with all the technology that they have going on. And we don't know what's going on up there in space. I think they're fighting over it right now. Only information that we're getting from people is their new weapons. That's all we've been getting for the past 8 months. It's just all these new tech weapons coming out. I mean, the other day there was one that China has like a flame thrower or something that goes out, 1,200 feet that can just tag somebody with. And I'm like, why do they keep showing us all these weapons? It's just kind of freaky. And these are not ordinary. This isn't World War II. This isn't Vietnam. It's not even Iraq. This is like Terminator type stuff, man, And it's here.
Yeah, it's
and I used to laugh about it, but it's not funny anymore. The stuff is here for real.
Yeah. Well, they've had lasers, I hear now, on jets and destroyers and various different craft. And the difference with that is it can just vaporize something or cut it in half. And you don't have wind drift like you have in, trying to sight a bullet or a missile as it's fired. You don't have correction issues. It just goes right where you point it. It doesn't matter if the wind's doing 200 miles an hour or if it's nothing. Pretty creepy stuff.
President, I guess you could call him Vladimir Putin, says that they just announced that too. Speaking of which, that they have new types of laser weapons that they developed. And that's all they're really telling us, that it's a high energy laser weapon that has data and purposes have remained secret. They just, for some reason, he comes out and says, well, we've got these new laser weapons. Just wanted to tell you guys that. And I'm thinking, geez, man, lasers, drones, EMPs, microwave pulses. Yeah, here it comes.
The future's here.
Do you think in a way, though, that will dim like casualties? Well, like it won't be as bad as the old times where we just did like nuclear fallout or, Vietnam, where it's nothing but bullets and fire. In a way, I kind of wonder if it's a little bit safer way to have a war. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know if there's anything.
I mean, nothing's good about war, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
It's a deterrent for sure because it's not going to be easy for anyone to win.
Is it showing in your charts that stuff's coming? Can you tell us that?
Yeah. I was saying there's a 240-year Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. There's two major aspects that I see happening right now. One is the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And I've mentioned this before, but Nixon took us off the gold standard. Right before the last one joined, the Soviet Union dissolved, and so did the wall come down in Germany on the last conjunction. Then as we move forward, 9/11 was the opposition. And then we have the final square that we just had in 2008 and 9 brought the financial crash. Now we got the conjunction again, January 12th of 2020. But there's another cycle. It's a 240-year cycle that's joining on the winter solstice of 2020. So between now and the end of 2020, this is major life-changing stuff. I would think we're going to see a lot of stuff go on financially as well, too. Huge, huge changes.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of weird dreams here lately, too. And I don't know. Usually I think it's the moon, because in my journal, I've noticed that when the moon gets full and when it gets like crescent on either side, I have really strange dreams. And all of my dreams here lately have been about that, have been about something to do with catastrophe. Like the other night, I had a dream that, and I've been doing this in audio, like saving this in audio form. But the other night I had a dream that we were like the ground was shaking. I was walking around with Corbin. And speaking of which, it's my son's birthday. I want to give a shout out to him. He turned 15 today. Happy birthday, Corbin.
Oh, wow. That's great.
But, yeah, man, time is flying by so quick. It's crazy. But the ground was shaking in the dream, and I could feel my heart like beating, speeding up in the dream. I could feel the ground shaking. I could feel the fear, and I knew that something was happening. Right. And I keep having dreams like that. One could be.
You sure it's not that coffee you're drinking, Joe?
It could be. This shock coffee that I'm drinking. Yeah, it could be. But I've been having these dreams for months, though, like this. For months, Jeff. At least once a week.
No, I'm with you. I'm just drinking my coffee right now. God, this coffee's so good.
You have premonitions like dreams? Do you remember your dreams?
Sometimes I do, yeah. And what's interesting is astrology, you can actually look at whether a dream has a detrimental or positive effect. You cast an interrogation chart, and the ruler of the 9th house is the dream. And dreams are really powerful. And they oftentimes can be something you scooped up off the astral plane, or it may be just your conscious mind being very active in its sleep state, in the subconscious world.
Man,
I find dreams have sometimes some very accurate significances.
You keep a dream journal?
I don't keep a dream journal, but I do cast charts when I think it's significant. And my computer now is my journal. I actually can go in and I have all these different files, and it allows me to see what questions I had asked and various different things. It's kind of fun to look at.
If you guys want to know too, let's go ahead. We can go ahead and announce this. Jeff is willing to give a discounted reading to anybody that's listening to the broadcast. What do they got to give you, a code word or something? And they get a certain discount, 10%.
They'll just mention on Joe Roop's show, on the show, and we'll give you a 10% discount. JeffHarman.com, HARMAN.com. And everybody knows there's only like 2, maybe 3 astrologers out there that I recommend to people, and you've always been one of them, one of the top ones. And it's like, I'll never forget the reading that you gave me, because I have no idea how you went into that stuff. And they got the skeptics. They're like, well, man, that was a good guess. No. Like Jeff was giving me dates of stuff that happened to me. I'm not saying that's going to happen in your chart. Maybe it was just my chart, but you were giving me dates, like stuff that happened to me when I was a kid that I still haven't talked about to certain people to this day. So it's pretty freaky how accurate that stuff can be. Yeah, that's progressions in Vedic astrology. It really is. I was astounded. It got me the same way too when I first started studying it. I'm like, wow, this is, really interesting. I don't think astrology predicts the future. It shows the cycles and timing and phases of when you have certain karmic energies releasing. And it's very powerful. I have to say, I was just on the phone with a client today. I have a lot of clients all over the world, and a lot of them I never directly meet. But sometimes I get people who don't have their birth time, or they don't have it on the birth certificate. So I have to do what we call a rectification. And a lot of times what I'll do is look at the progressions and the transits. And if those don't match up, I know the birth time isn't right. And that's why I ask a lot of questions to make sure that they correlate. And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty darn amazing at how the Vedic astrology particularly shows when certain events happen and certain karmic, you could say, things we're brought here to overcome.
Well, you're not mad at me, are you? Because the last few shows I got back into the occult and magic, and we had some talks about Lucifer again, and I was even thinking about, it's like Friday, Jeff's going to come back on and he's going to get mad at me for talking about this stuff, because the last time you were on here, I'm just playing. I don't think you're really going to get mad at me, but you were warning us how dangerous this stuff is. And you said especially ritual magic. And I kind of wanted to go into that because there's different types of magic, right? And people, I think sometimes people get the feeling that what you're saying is all magic is bad. And that's, I think, what Jeff's specifically saying. And you did say it, that ritual magic gets pretty dangerous. And it does, from my own experience. And I'll tell that story coming up too here, but yeah, you're not mad at me, are you, for talking about that stuff this week?
Magic. When you think about it, the fact that if we step back and look at, especially in the age of artificial intelligence, when you look at AI and everything that's going on, they're trying to replicate life. They're constantly trying to replicate what we do, the way computers think, the way they memorize things and all that. And life is magic to me. It really is. It's divine magic. I mean, you find a robot that can pick up a cup of coffee as dexterously as we can. It's pretty amazing how amazing our bodies are. I mean, just look at an athlete or, the stuff we do every day, drive a car, walk across the room. I mean, walking is controlled falling. So the whole AI efforts are to replicate logic, in human motion and do things that pretty much happens in life. And even though there's a lot more they're pursuing, but I think, the word magic's a very broad term. The one that I always be very careful of is things that really get into those grimoires and people trying to summon spirits and control them and use sigils and all that. Very dangerous stuff and was really frowned upon by many of the knowledgeable rabbinical texts as well as some of the Western religions as well. And I really have to agree with them on that one, because everyone I've seen playing in those realms ends up in not a good way.
What freaks me out about it too is when you study those grimoire texts, they're pretty much memoirs, right? So or not memoirs, but manuscripts, right? So they're handwritten by all of these different dudes. I guess you could just say dudes, magicians, wizards. They all have their own interpretations of it. And so a lot of these people are doing different goetic stuff from one book or another that doesn't exactly line up. So it's kind of a guessing game too. Even no matter how cool the formula is, there could be something. I mean, think about it. There could be something off there, wrong too, no matter how safe they say it is.
There's a lot wrong. That's why we had mentioned one of my favorite examples, which was the Goth translation or Guth translation of the Abramelin work, which was really Rabbi Maharil. And Abulafia, too, was another one who was a very astute Kabbalist. And they all said the same thing, that the true sacred holy magic was you had to have an upper angel come to you. And very few human beings will ever get that to happen. And that was the ancient ritual of the Passover to the fall equinox, the new moons on each, which is 6 lunations. And very few people will ever have that happen. And I think it's not even fully allowed. There's only portions of it. It's very secret stuff. And that's, again, no human being is going to have the intelligence to try and control these beings. And Western science doesn't even subscribe to it. I had a great conversation that I'm going to be putting up on YouTube real soon with a physicist, Dr. Claude Swanson. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he wrote several books, and we're pretty good friends. And he wrote a book called The Synchronized Universe, and then he called another book, I think it was The Life Force Energy. And he's one of the only Western true physicists, that has tried to technically tie together science and healing, prana, magic, spirits, angels into a true scientific model. And one of the things that the Russians, speaking of the Russians, have found out, and they labeled it called torsional waves or torsion. And it's an explanation for energy that actually travels much faster than the speed of light. And it kind of it doesn't kind of parallel. It is exactly what thoughts and intentions and etheric energy that travels through the universe is. And it also explains why astrology works. It has nothing to do with gravity. See, the hard physics, the only thing they'll get to is, well, there's no way the planets could have any effect because there's no gravitational force that would be strong enough at the Earth's placement. And they're right. They're absolutely right. The inverse square law would completely negate much effect of any of the planets gravitational-wise. But when you start throwing these other scientific analysis of torsion waves and also some of the interactions that are going on in between the current science of physics, it makes total sense.
So this
it's unequivocal.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. And I'll tell you what, guys, this is the night too. If you got a question for Jeff, this is the time to do it. You can call in, all right, because it's 1-800-588-0335. You can ask Jeff a question. The way he does readings, though, it's kind of like they're very extensive, so it's different from Mary, or you're not going to be able to do that. But you can get a discount. Just mention the show if you do a reading. But if you want to ask a general esoteric question or anything, give us a call. It's 1-800-588-0335. Coming up, we're going to do the Riddler again. And if you call in and guess it right, you will win a free t-shirt, a Lighting the Void t-shirt. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Marl Bow Wow, the world's first cigarette for macho dogs. That's Marl Bow Wow, the canine cigarette with the liver-flavored filter.
Get the Tea is the #1 cleansing tea in America. We cleanse you with organic ingredients, and when used daily, you can increase your energy. Cleanse from intruders that set up camp in your colon. Cleanse your colon and feel the difference. Colon cleanses can be uncomfortable. Not Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea is mild yet truly effective. Cleanse your insides every day. Easy to make, easy to use, and feel the results. Are you sold? Okay, then here's how to order. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Look for our specials on the front page. Get the Tea also carries top-rated supplements for those who care about their health, naturally. Again, log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com and feel the results. And for those of you that arm yourself with information, come to our webinar every other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's every other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific. You can sign up at GetTheTea.com.
This is Crow 777, and you are listening to The Fringe FM.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to The Fringe FM, and visit the website thefringe.fm to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on The Fringe FM.
Who were the real ancient Egyptians? What is it about ancient Egypt that captivates us all? The critically acclaimed series Magical Egypt is back with all new episodes. Let Chance Gardner and company take you on another adventure through Magical Egypt in the new series Magical Egypt 2. Magical Egypt 2 attempts a forensic reconstruction of the science of the ancients through a study of ancient aesthetics. Also, the best researchers and authors in the field like John Anthony West, Graham Hancock, Laird Scranton, Robert Duval, Lon Duquette, Aaron Cheek, and more join together to explore the topics of the esoteric and the hidden messages of the ancient Egyptians. Just go to magicalegypt.com right now and put in the code word FRINGE and get 10% off any download or order, including the groundbreaking original Magical Egypt series, as well as the new episodes in Magical Egypt 2. Also, check out the great work and the companion series at magicalegypt.com. Click the banner on the Fringe FM or go to magicalegypt.com and use the code word FRINGE and get 10% off your order today while it lasts.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's Secondhand Omelet Shop, the only diner in town featuring refried eggs. This week only you can buy 2 of Ed's famous eggshell omelets for only half the price of 4.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. So here's the calling number if you want to win the t-shirts, 1-800-588-0335. Tonight I'm here with special guest host Jeff Harman, an astrologer, also esotericist. And I'll pull this thing up in a minute. But one thing we didn't mention before when you were on the broadcast, Jeff, was the jewels. We didn't even talk about that. And a lot of people talk about crystals, and rocks and stuff, which that's fine. But you're still today one of the only people I know that use jewels to help with, warding away spirits or bringing in good energy. And you find that's pretty effective, don't you?
I really do. I actually have a lot of people, especially business people. I've even had a lot of people in politics, and what it is it's Vedic planetary gemology, which is completely different than your birth sign. It actually looks at which stones you should wear, which ones you shouldn't wear, which is just as important as the ones you do wear. So you can balance the chart really quite amazingly. And I also find there's certain stones that you can wear at certain times. Like in Vedic astrology, there's what we call doshas or time lords. And like someone will get into a certain period for 7 years or 17 or 8 years or whatever it is, or 6 years. And there are certain stones you want to wear during that time. And then there's stones you want to wear all the time. The main thing is what it does to your aura. It really strengthens it. I was actually skeptical when I had a teacher about 30 years ago who told me, "Oh, Jeff, you must wear this stone." And I'm like, come on, what are you trying to do? Sell me a stone. And then I held it and I went, oh my God, this thing is really powerful. The key is it has to be natural and unaltered. And that's harder to find than people think. Most of the stuff in the jewelry industry has had some type of treatment, either irradiation, lasering, heat treatment, or some altercation, and that really messes with the energy. You want it totally natural. And it needs to be set at a good astrological time to the birth chart, and it should touch the skin. So the gemstone literally is a talisman set to each individual specific chart. And that's what makes it powerful. And then there's a cleansing procedure and a charging procedure prior to wearing it. And it's pretty impressive. I have to say, I've had so many people come back years later and say, I'm really impressed. It really has a great energy. I'm like, I know.
Yeah, and look here, I want to say to somebody too in the chat, and you know who you are, when people do stuff for a living, like I do this for a living, Jeff does astrology for a living, and you say that, well, if there's money involved, it's not about truth. That's probably the most self-righteous and idiotic thing I've ever heard anybody say. And I'm not trying to be mean, but I get so sick of hearing that stuff because people want to, they want to do what they love for a living. But the second somebody does it and really does what they want for a living, or they're passionate about it and they make a life out of it, like Jeff has, and take care of his family. And, Jeff does other things too, like you do your entertainment industry and you're into the movies as well. It's ridiculous for you to steal somebody's dream and take away that passion, all because they're making a living doing something you love, that you are making money. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little flustered, but that stuff really pisses me off, man. Because when you take that mentality, your whole idea of money is suspect, and you come from a place of lack anyways. Your whole idea of life comes from a place of lack. The truth is you can do what you want to do for a living if you really love it and you try hard enough, and it comes from a place of light and abundance. So I don't want to hear all that stuff. I just don't want to hear it.
world. I wish it was all free, to tell you the truth. I always say that to people. I wish the gems could be just given free. I mean, they come out of the ground free, except they don't when you have to pay the miners, the import duties, all the associated costs. I mean, it's kind of, the whole world is financially, encroach on all of us. It's a capitalistic society. It's the way it is.
Yeah. I mean, you always hear that too from people that aren't making a living doing what they love for a living, and they want to, say, oh, that person's, because they're making money doing that stuff. Not only it's bad and it's got nothing to do with the truth, buddy. I mean, ask a millionaire, ask the people that are actually, I would say, successful. What is it? Like most billionaires have astrologers because they know there's something real to it. And this isn't like flipping cards over, man. When you read charts and the stuff that, if you get a reading from Jeff, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a lot of work to it. There's a ton of work that goes into it. It's a lifetime of study.
The boys who run this place, and George Carlin was right, forget the politicians. You have owners above the politicians, and they know a lot about astrology, and there's overwhelming evidence. They're all over this right now. They know this is a crucial time. In fact, the Masons, if you look at Washington, D.C., it's a Masonic temple. That's what it is. I mean, the French architect that laid it out, there's books on this. It's literally a very geometrically laid out temple. In fact, D.C. stands for District of Columbia. Now, I know a lot of folks think it's District of Criminals, but it's really the District of Columbia.
Yeah, right.
And that's an Egyptian temple is what it is.
Yeah, it is. But what I will say on the other note, too, is now fake people that pretend to be astrologers and take people's money and stuff, that's bad. That hurts people like Jeff. And that's God, man. Do you ever feel that way? Like when you pick up the newspaper and you see today's daily horoscope, right? That stuff is just your sun sign. It's your Western sun sign sometimes. And people get so stuck on that. Like I'm an Aries. I get stuck on that too, but I always forget about the rest of my chart, which really does matter,
Yeah, it's not going to show any cycles or anything. That's for sure.
All right, let's do this. So here's the deal. If you get this riddle, you will win a t-shirt, a Lighting the Void t-shirt. I promise. And it's, this one's easy. Actually, some people have guessed it, but they've guessed it through Messenger. They haven't called in. So the Riddler. All right. Strictly speaking, we are not beings. However, without one, we are not seen. Angling around from dawn till dusk, only to meet our destiny of wasting away at the end of the day, silently waiting again to play. What am I? Call in at 1-800-588-0335 and you will win. I may give you a couple of guesses too. I think some of you might be afraid. It's not specifically easy, but the answer is quite simple. I mean, I asked Jeff during the break what he thought it was, and I don't think he knows what it is. Do you know what it is, Jeff?
Well, I would say it's a spiritual being having a physical experience.
It sounds like it, right? But that's not it. But some of you have guessed it. You just need to call in. All right. So this whole idea, I want to get back into the magic thing, right? I think that I'm in conflict, Jeff, and I think I'm not the only one because I like to study magic. I like the idea of it. Like magic squares, things like that. You've talked to me about this. The idea that we can tap into a power that's kind of like tapping into the software that's behind creation and be able to manifest things in our life, be able to become more spiritually enhanced. And yet, when I talk to you, I'm glad you tell me this because there are certain aspects of it that are dangerous. Like besides things like goetic magic and sigil magic, what other things bother you about magic, just out of curiosity?
Well, I guess I think it's dangerous because people who will take some of these books and try this stuff are trying to manipulate reality in a way that's probably not healthy. And, we're all trying to manipulate reality any way you put it. I mean, a person who goes to work and tries to earn a living, we're manipulating our reality just to earn a living and pay for things and et cetera, pay taxes and all that. But I guess when you're trying to find a way to control another being or some situation where it's against someone's will, that's really not good. And especially if they start playing around with spirits, that's where it gets dangerous. You take Crowley and a lot of the stuff that he did, it was really dangerous stuff, really, really dangerous. And a lot of people follow him.
Right. Yeah.
So it depends on, again, I've never been a fan of magic. I'm more a fan of
mysticism,
trying to, I like things like Reiki and healing and that kind of stuff and helping people, like prayer. Prayer is magic.
Right.
Technically, it really is. Dr. Emoto's work is proof of that. Do you know that in Emoto's work, he actually had someone who was sick, and they looked at the blood under a microscope, and they could see it wasn't oxygenating, and the cells weren't healthy. They literally had some people do meditations over the water and some prayers, and the person drank the water under the same microscope literally 20 seconds after they drank it. They saw the blood was more oxygenated and everything was shifting to a more healthy cellular structure. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that is pretty fascinating, man.
So
I'm with you on that stuff, though. I really am. Yeah. But like I was telling Corinne, who was on the show the other night, and I think you do this too, it might be a good idea if you're going to get into this stuff like you do in exorcisms and things to study the other side of it so you really know what's going on there. At least you can't be a wizard without studying the enemy. You know what I'm saying? At least you know what the dark side of this thing is, if you want to look at it that way. Some people don't look at it that way, but I do.
I think that's really wise to realize what not to do because, there's some really nasty entities out there. There's no question about that. Elementals are very, very nasty energies. In fact, we're all laden with what we call karmic elementals. It's interesting because when you read a person's aura and even in astrology, you can see a lot of baggage that is brought in to this incarnation that oftentimes is something we are here to overcome. There's actually specific names for it in Vedic astrology, like a Kalasarpa yoga is actually a serpent curse. And that means that person, it's kind of an overblown term, but it really means that there's some very serious karma on that soul. And you would go, okay, well, how can you prove that? Well, I've had the blessing of listening to what happens to these people and the situations they get themselves in. And it's pretty intense. It's pretty darn intense.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we might have a call. We got a caller here, 510 area code. You're on the air with Jeff Harman. Do you have a question for Jeff, or did you guess the riddle?
I guess, I called a couple days ago when Jeff was on, so I don't mean to keep bothering you all.
No, it's cool.
It was great show. I did want to try to answer the riddle, and if I didn't win, then maybe I'll just ask Jeff a quick question. Is the answer the stars?
Oh man, no.
Nope.
That's close. That's kind of close, but yeah. But do you got another question for Jeff?
No, actually not really. I think what he's saying is pretty right on, and I'm glad that you have somebody else who talks a lot about the Daskalo stuff and the elemental stuff. If anything else, maybe just if there's any other particular exercises, or should I just go through the esoteric practices and just basically go through each one of those meditations basically in that order? Because I know Daniel Joseph's book kind of has a different order for those things, and I'm just, I don't know much about the Researchers of Truth system because, I came to all this stuff basically. I think I spoke to Joe about this before, but, I really liked Crowley and stuff when I was a kid because I was like, oh, this stuff looks really cool. Mm-hmm. I was more like that kind of, but, kind of a lot of that stuff freaks me out. And, I don't think it's bad per se, but, I definitely feel like it's nice to kind of do stuff that's on rails. So do you have any idea, Jeff?
That's a good question.
Practices or Researchers of Truth?
Yeah.
I'll tell you one that I like a lot is a book called The Shemush Tehillim, which is a book that really everyone's completely familiar with, at least in the Western world. It's the Psalms. The Shemush means method or technique of, it could be interpreted a couple of different ways. And Tehillim is the Psalms. There's one that's in print right now. It's about the only one out there in English, and it has a parallel English-Hebrew translation. And what I like about it is the front half of the book gives you the ancient instructions that what each psalm is for. Like you can clear yourself of entities for Psalm 40. You can make relationships go better by reading Psalm, I think it's 45. There's all kinds of meanings to these, and this was all taken out somewhere between the probably 2nd and 5th century. No one knows exactly when. And inside of it, it has the cryptographic angelic names that are encoded in certain verses. And why I like that is you can actually, it's like a physician's desk reference. You can actually say, well, if I want to, empower some situation, it's actually a prayer, a very sacred prayer with angels in it. And that I like a lot. A good example is I've had a lot of entertainers who have to go out on stage, or they're going in front of a camera or what have you, and I'll tell them read Psalm 4 or 5, because 4 actually helps you be lucky, and Psalm 5 actually has a technique where you're received well by people in power. And it actually has, again, the prayer methods and also the encrypted angelic names that are used in the ciphers. So it's really cool stuff.
All right, yeah, because I remember a few days ago you were talking about Psalm 90 and Psalm 91, or the end of Psalm 90 and the beginning of Psalm 91. I actually looked for the Shemush Tehillim, and it's like $200 on Amazon. So I actually spoke to.
Oh no, you can get it for $49.
Oh really? Okay.
For $49. Yeah, it's somewhere around there, 49 or 59. That particular translation, I think, is by Mario Lanza or something like that. Here, I can look it up for you right now. Hang on. I can tell you
most of the questions that we got in were about the books because you were just naming off so many books. People are like, wait, what's that? Where's that from? Yeah.
Here, I'll tell you in 2 seconds. I'm going to be there.
Yeah, thanks for your call, Josh. Appreciate it, brother. All right,
Bye.
so the riddle's still open to win your free T-shirt. It's still there, and we'll repeat it later, too.
Yeah, the one he was talking about is actually on Amazon. It is the hardcover version for $59.98. It's called Shemush Tehillim and the Psalms and their Kabbalistic use.
The Jews got a lot of crazy books, too, though, right? Like, have you ever read the Babylonian Talmud? Have you ever looked at that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Talmud is, there's a couple of versions of it. It's very interesting documents.
Didn't they come up with that just by sitting across the tables and talking to each other and arguing about what's right or wrong?
Well, the Talmud is a collection of various different ancient techniques and theologies and laws. There's a lot of books in the Hebrew that is very interesting. Some of again, I love the texts like the Sharei Hagilgum, Nefesh Hasitzim. Those are really cool because it gets into the soul, the souls and the different levels of our souls. And there's a really good exorcism that's in the, in fact, I got it right here. Let me pull it. It's in the Sharei Hagilgum. And what's so fascinating about this is it actually says there's different levels of entities. That not only do you have elementals, but you have mazziks, which are damagers. You have a shahid, which is a part human, part angel, and then a rosh raha, which is an errant soul forced to wander. And this is a different take than the Vedantic stuff because they actually have prayers that are right out of the Bible on how you would purify. And the Psalms are definitely used in this to release that elemental or disincarnate that's attached to that particular individual. And I can tell you this stuff really works. And it is very, very powerful. These entities don't like these kind of sacred encrypted prayers.
Yeah, I've got a story that I'm going to tell you that was pretty freaky, where I'm pretty sure that I exercised myself with the Book of Psalms. Can people just use the Book of Psalms? Do they have to get the Shemush Tehillim? Can't they just use Psalms? Or what's the difference?
Well, sure they can. I think that what the Shemush Tehillim offers is that it actually tells you what its ancient design or intention was, and also you can use any book of Psalms. You can get the Psalms for free on the internet, and they're great. But it's hard to know what the ancient intent of each one was designed for. And you certainly won't be able to get the encrypted angelic names or the prescribed prayers that go with it.
I got you. So in that text, it tells you what they're for, like what you can use them for, instead of just reading the actual scriptures or whatever.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's a parallel English-Hebrew translation. It's an Azurit script, which is much different. It has it's believed to have sacred geometry to the tails on the ends of the words. It's very powerful. And the technique is, and it tells you how to do this, you're supposed to read it and then scan it forward and backwards. Now, there's been some criticism of that particular text, and they're right. There is some mistakes in it, and there are a couple of mistranslations. But in general, you're not going to find anything, unless you're a Hebrew or Aramaic scholar, that's got a complete translation like this.
Wow, Josh is looking online saying that he found one for $869. He found a paperback for $869, but a hardcover for $60.
I see where he's seeing that, yeah. But the hardcover is $59.98.
Look, some of these people, you got to watch out for that. We talked about that last night too. Some of these people are really trying to tax you on these books. And don't get me wrong, I mean, if it's a rare book, let's say like Carl Jung's Red Book that has that certain edition with all the pictures and stuff, I mean, it might be worth to get it to spend that kind of money, but there are tons of people that are just trying to rake people over the coals with money, especially on places like Amazon and stuff for books that they don't even own. They're just reselling. So it wouldn't hurt to look and dig at some other bookstores too. Maybe find a used copy. I mean, if it's that special to you, I would. It's not going to hurt anything. But it just amazes me that some of these people that call themselves spiritual scholars, whatever, they resell books for thousands of dollars. I guess more power to them, but that's the kind of stuff that bothers me.
I guess they're going to get what they can get.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, do you have a couple of rare books too, though, that are hard to get, right? I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah. I've got quite a few. Yeah. I always love to research historic books. I think it's really fascinating. And some of the texts that have been coming out over the last 20, 30 years are pretty good. There's a group called the Uranian Trust, which is headed by Benjamin Dykes, who has put out a really solid bunch of translations that were very hard to get before. One of them was Bonatti. He was a very famous astrologer in the 12th century, and or you might say 13th, actually, but pretty impressive. Again, that's probably one of the most complete texts I've ever seen on all the various types of classical astrology that was around. And this is before the printing press, so that was a pretty big job to be able to generate that kind of texts. Fascinating stuff.
Guys, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
All right, guys, we're at the top of the hour. The Riddler is still open for your free T-shirt. You got to call in. You know what's funny, too, is some people, there were like, I would say 3 people that guessed it, right? They did it. They messaged in the chat rooms. I just can't figure out why you don't want to call into the toll-free number. It's free. You got the right answer. Call in, for God's sakes, right? It's a free T-shirt. So, and there's other people that want it that are guessing wrong. So, yeah. You probably know who you are, but it's 1-800-588-0335. We'll be right back with Jeff Harman. Also coming up, I'm going to tell you about my own personal story where I believe that I exercised myself as well. Speaking of the Psalms, we'll be right back.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Alex X. Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling. The ground shook. You could hear rushing water. And then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails, stores with their shelves stripped bare, ATMs can't operate, deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke, the system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Did you know that qualified patients can access medical cannabis in all 50 states? Cannasense is a medical cannabis collective that helps patients in all 50 states gain access to cannabis medication. Cannasense does this with a streamlined process and strict compliance with the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, the Affordable Care Act, and the U.S. Constitution. It is important for each patient to understand the legalities involved, the costs, and the benefits of cannabis medication. Through truth, legalization, and education, the medical benefits of cannabis will supplant recreational perceptions, and the real vision for change will be realized. Let the people and their personal doctors take control of their medical cannabis decisions before the greed of big business takes over. The tipping point for change is today, and Cannasense is ready to lead the charge and enable legal access for all qualified patients to medical cannabis through its proven system. For more information, go to thefringe.fm/care or click the banner on the website today.
AncientLifeOil.com. For your CBD needs, just remember, AncientLifeOil.com. What does it do for the body, you ask? I can't say due to the people in the suits that run the industry. Big Pharma's all over CBD because of its well, you know what I mean. Research the benefits of CBD on Google and come back to AncientLifeOil.com and purchase your CBD today. Non-GMO and all organic. You don't want to be using a petroleum product. You want to be using the cleanest CBD product on the market. AncientLifeOil.com. We even have CBD for your pet. Help your pet's discomfort. Help your discomfort. Log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Newly reduced prices to pass off the savings to the most important person. You. AncientLifeOil.com. And one more thing. We have topicals too. So if you have joint pain and some different issues that are going on in your body, you might want to use a topical. Think about it. AncientLifeOil.com.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. We're here with Jeff Harman as our guest host this Friday night. And by the way, we're going to do this a couple of times a month. I think it's going to be a pretty big, like a big gap before Jeff comes on again, but he will be back. And again, I want to say, hey, Jeff, thanks for offering your time with us. A lot of people really do appreciate what you do. And it's kind of like, I never wanted to be honest with you, that show host that has the same, like, I have this guy come on at this time of the month and that guy. But like, there are a couple of people that I would love doing that with, like you and Mary, and it just makes for a great time. So, and time is valuable. So again, man, and I know I've said it enough, and this will be my last time, but I do appreciate you doing this.
Oh man, pleasure's mine. Don't worry.
So I got to give. Is it really yours, or are you just saying that? Do you really love me, Jeff?
Yeah, you're good to work with. I like you, Joe.
Cool. All right, I got to give this riddle out one more time. So if you call in and you get the riddle right, you will win a free T-shirt. One more time. Here's the riddle. Let's do the sound drop again too, just because it's Friday night, just for the hell of it, right?
The Riddler.
Strictly speaking, we are not beings. However, without one, we are not seen. Angling around from dawn till dusk, only to meet our destiny of wasting away at the end of the day, silently waiting again to play. What am I? Call in at 1-800-588-0335. You'll win a free T-shirt. And since we're already in the second hour, I'll give you two guesses. And that means, Josh, you can call back in and guess again if you want. It's not the stars. Someone's already said that. Some of you have already actually guessed it, but you messaged me. Like, you just didn't dial the number. It's 1-800-588-0335. There's no way I'm going to answer you in a chat room on this one. You've got to make the effort to call in to get the T-shirt on this one. All right, so, Jeff, I'm going to tell you my exorcism story, right? And then you tell me if you think this was a true exorcism, okay?
Okay,
so
go for it.
Back in the day, and everybody knows I used to have severe anxiety, right? I had, like, super freak out panic attacks where I would hyperventilate, and this stuff went on for years. I mean, I was having panic attacks about having panic attacks because I thought I was going to have a panic attack, and I got so messed up in my mind, I just didn't want to live. That's how bad it was. I was afraid to go outside. The furthest place I would go to is the mailbox. So, and this was in my early 20s, by the way, but I wouldn't leave. If I wasn't in a comfort zone, like around my family or in a hospital, I was afraid to go anywhere. Now, I'm not laughing because I know there's other people that have this, but after I turned to, the doctors gave me Xanax, Lexapro, some stuff that made me drool on myself. I mean, they gave me everything under the sun. And that's when I realized, look, this has got to be a spiritual matter. And I went to my grandfather and he told me that he thought it was a demon, so to speak, but he tried to get it out of me, but it really didn't work. And he read all kinds of books on spiritual warfare. Well, one day I was at my grandmother's house, and this is a 3-story house. At the top of the house is there's a steel door, right? So it's actually, there's a basement, a second story, and a third story, and it's kind of weird here in Arkansas. The third story works out to where it's level with the ground. But anyways, there's a steel door on the outside with a steel frame. And I was just inside that door in they had the living space upstairs where there's books around everywhere. And I sat on the floor and I pulled out my grandmother's Bible, which is really, really old. I had to dust the damn thing off. And I opened the Psalms, and I wish I remembered the Psalm that I was saying, but I don't. And I'm sorry because it was so long ago. I don't remember which one. I think it was in the 90s somewhere though. And, so I read the Psalm and I kept saying, look, something's starting to feel good about this. It feels like I'm taking command, and something inside me told me to keep repeating it. Right. So I would read it again. I read the Psalm again, and I read it louder and louder. And I really started feeling this kind of adrenaline rush type thing going up my spine, so to speak. Some people will say, oh, that's the Holy Ghost. I don't know. I know that's what I was feeling. And so I started reading it louder and louder, and it was kind of a windy day, but that steel door blew open, and I know it wasn't windy enough to blow that door open, but the door blew open, and the wind came in, and it hit the bookshelves, and books were all flying around and stuff, but not like floating and levitating, but it was a strong enough wind to knock the books off the shelf, and you could hear pages flopping around and slapping against each other, and it kind of scared me. And so I was like, okay, what do I do now? And that voice inside myself said, keep saying it. So I kept saying it and saying it. And eventually it all died down. Now, the weird part is is I never thought that was an exorcism. I did this out of pure desperation, folks. I wasn't even into spirituality at the time, and the Bible was the only thing that I knew to go to because I was raised with it. And so it was out of desperation. It wasn't till later, even not too much later, that I realized that it could have been an exorcism. But I would say a month or two after that, this stuff started to subside and it started to go away. It didn't immediately leave me, but there was a noticeable change in my body and in my health and in my energy after a month or so, and it left. Now, most people would say that the wind picked up and it just knocked the door open and that was a coincidence. I kind of feel like I exercised myself. What do you think, Jeff?
I think you did. I actually was casting a chart looking at that, and I think you did.
Oh, really?
I actually cast a chart. Yeah. I did an interrogation right as you asked it. Yeah, I think you did exercise yourself. And, it's interesting. I love these kinds of stories because a lot of people think they're not true and they didn't happen. But I have had so many experiences clearing people in places where if you catch the right energy, it is very, very powerful. And a lot of times our conscious mind is wired to not believe this stuff, or it's wired to think it's, not effective. And I find the most powerful way to cause things like this is belief. And again, if you look at Dr. Emoto, he shows that thought form elementals or thought form projection is so powerful. This is what they do in sales. This is what you look at any political leaders who really had power. They had power over people because they projected with such strength. That's the same kind of way you have to do it in healing modalities is people that are effective that just have to believe in what they do, that it has power. Because then it does. You take Qigong, which is really powerful. There are some Qigong masters, they can literally knock you back. It's that powerful. But it takes a lot of training and a lot of awareness. The Tibetan Lamas, they would actually train them, the little sand circles that they would make. And they would actually train them at creating elementals so that when they went down into the villages, people actually felt that energy. You take most strong business people, they have a very strong presence. And a lot of that is the own self-image being projected out into the aura. So when people do clearing like what you did, you probably, you've got a lot of force in your chart, Joe. Actually, you've got that Mars, Saturn. In fact, let me get your chart back up. You have that Mars and Saturn, I think, in the ascendant 7th house aspect. And that's what I love about looking at a person's chart. You can really see what the inherent energies are in a person's chart. And oftentimes they don't even know it. I have
How did you do that? So you cast a chart. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but while I was telling the story, you just casted a chart right then to see what was up?
Exactly. Yep. Exactly right. You can look, see the ruler of the ascendant in that case was you because you were telling the story. So I just wanted to see what the energy was surrounding it. And the energy looked like, you actually did. People are powerful. Again, I'm not trying in any way to demean certain religions, but if they were really interested in empowering people, they would teach them that a lot of this sacred stuff is what anybody can do. Like healing modalities, so on and so forth. This is why the Eastern religions actually were, or I should say some of the Eastern practices like Qigong, Reiki, and some of the stuff that was taught in ancient India is very powerful. Yeah, see, I'm looking at your chart right now. You have a Mars-Saturn conjunction in the ascendant. So
that's
you
not
can...
good, right?
No, it's always been tough on you, and we discussed that. But it always brings in the earlier life a very tough, that Mars aspects your 4th house, so your home life, when we discussed that, was not easy at all. And but when a person gets a hold of this, it actually can give you a lot of force in prayer and in healing modalities. And that's the key. See, Daskalos, when in the Magus of Strovolos, I like to bring him up because I really like his methods. He trains one in the powers of observation and also in the powers of projecting thought forms and awareness of them. And that's where it really becomes, I think, very powerful. And, for someone just to get the Psalms and just read them and expect, the seas to part, that's probably not going to happen. But if you do that with intent, as long as you're not trying to hurt someone and you're trying to do it for good purposes, and you do it with a lot of belief, that's going to have a lot more power. It's like, if you don't believe you're going to do something, you probably shouldn't even undertake it. So belief is a really powerful, I think, element of human.
I was doing it out of desperation, though.
Well, a lot of times it's a good time to do it.
I wish I could explain how desperate I was, Jeff, at that time. Like, I really thought about blowing my brains out, man, and I've never thought about that. I've never even had those kind of thoughts before. I'm way too, I guess, self-centered to commit suicide.
What year
right?
was that? When was that?
I was 20 years old, 2002. It happened for a couple of years. It was right after high school. I was 19 years old. I remember when I had the first panic attack, and it went into my 20s, 20, right before I met my wife.
You were in a Saturn major, what would they call a Mahadosha, from 17 up to about 21.
Yeah.
So that whole period, 17, 18, 19, and 20 would have been really intense for you.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing some bad stuff, and literally, out here, there's nothing to do. And I'll tell you guys, out here, there's nothing to do. So you go to your buddy's house, everybody gets stoned and drinks and, does harder stuff and play video games. And then what, right? Then what? What are you going to do? And, when you're 18 or 19 years old, you think you got life all figured out, but you really don't. And I just started having these thoughts of before the panic attacks happened, I just started having these thoughts of what am I doing? Is this it? Is this what the rest of my life is going to be? Is just, getting blasted out of my head, hoping that something happens during the day because there's nothing I can make happen. And I just started dwelling on that stuff. And the next thing you know, it's man, I feel like I can't breathe, and then your chest starts to hyperventilate, and then your arms start going numb, and you're like, what's going on here? Am I having a heart attack? And all of your buddies, your so-called buddies and friends, they're looking at you like, hey, man, what's going on with you? You flipping out or something? Hey, man, something's wrong with Roop. I think he's flipping out over here. And then you really start to get scared because you realize these friends of yours, they just want you to stop because you're making them uncomfortable. They don't care that you feel like you're dying or not. And then it gets even scarier. And I went through that for that period from 19 to 20 something. Right. And even when I met my ex-wife, Carla, I was having those panic attacks. Sometimes she would follow me home and I'd have to pull the truck over and get out of the truck. And because I just didn't want to drive because I felt like I was going to crash the truck, and she's like, you having another attack? And I wanted to act tough around her, be like, I'm fine. I'll be okay. And just walk it off. But yeah, that was some freaky stuff, man. And I really do think that
you actually had something called Sati Sate that kicked in from 2003 all the way up to about, 2000, I want to say 2010, yeah. Thereabouts, yeah. That's Saturn's transit of the moon, actually 2003, to about 2010. That's the thing I like is I was starting to mention a lot of times we'll compare notes with psychology or psychiatry and of a particular individual and look at the transits and progressions, when that's possible to do that. Because I'm always very careful not to do that unless the person allows that or they want that done. But it's really a different viewpoint to look at what happens to us. The Saturn, if you look at the glyph of Saturn, it's the cross over the crescent of the moon. So it's really releasing. It's almost like a capacitor in electronics. It holds energy and it gets released as it makes hard aspects in the chart. Now, I always say life is a 3-act stage play. The Act 1 is from birth to the first Saturn return. Act 2 is from the first Saturn return to the second, which happens. The first one's about 28 to 29, somewhere in that area. The second Saturn return is about 58 to 59. And then the third one, if we live that long, it's going to put us in our 80s. So Act 3 is really from the second Saturn return to the third one. And I think anything past that, you're lucky. You know, I mean, let's face it, once you start hitting your 80s and older, even though some people make it to 100, we're not as functional as we'd like to be. Though hopefully that'll change someday. But Saturn is a really interesting timer. And when I clear spaces, and I find that a lot of the old astrological texts talk about that, you want to make sure there's certain energetic configurations when you do that, clearing people or places. It's a lot different technique. You know, today we're seeing a lot of machines coming around reading infrared, reading temperature, which is all fine because you can see variances in spirit and so on and so forth with that, or energetic energies that are not readily identifiable could be measured with certain instruments. But I find it's kind of more gimmicky for me, though some people may find it's not for them. They certainly get scientific proof. Yeah. But I like to use just plain common sense, what people tell me, phenomena that has happened. Like I was telling that story. I had one individual who was actually a judge, and I can't mention where or who, but he said, I thought my wife and the maids were all crazy because I don't believe in this stuff. Huh. He says, but I have to say, we had a haunting in this house, and 7 maids had quit. 7 or 8 maids had quit. They kept hearing noises and hollering outside. And they got really panicked about it, especially the ones that were there in late hours watching the kids and stuff.
Well, I want to hear about that for sure, because that sounds awesome. We got a caller real quick here from, looks like 619 area code. Did you solve the riddle, or do you have a question for Jeff?
Oh, I just wanted to guess the riddle.
Okay.
A sunflower. A sunflower.
A sunflower. No, I'm sorry. But keep guessing, though. Do you have a question for Jeff?
No, I don't have a question. I'm just going to listen.
Thanks for guessing. That's a pretty good guess, though. That's actually closer than the stars. So 2 people have said the stars, but it's not. It's here. I'll give you guys a hint. You see them every day, and you don't have to look up for them. Okay. And one more time. Strictly speaking, we are not beings. However, without one, we are not seen. Angling around from dawn to dusk, which I want you to ignore that part because you see these at night sometimes, only to meet our destiny of wasting away at the end of the day. So here's some hints. You got to have light to see these things. Hello? All right, anyways. So tell me about the judge and the maids and the haunting, Jeff.
Well, in this particular instance, that they were having a lot of problems in the house with strange energy. So the judge said to me, he says, you can't tell anybody about this, but he said, can anything be done? And so I looked at a chart and I said, yeah, I really think it can be done, but I'm going to need to be there by myself. And I said, if you guys could get out of there for a day, and I'll pick a good day, and give me a signed piece of paper that I can be in your house in case anybody says, what are you doing here? And so I did, and I went in there and I did a clearing, which was using some very sacred geometry and certain rituals and prayers. And I found that it was actually a disincarnate soul who was murdered there probably close to 30 or 40 years earlier. And we found out that this place might have been a brothel at one time.
Oh, really?
And she was thrown off a cliff and off the back side of the house, which is pretty bizarre because it was way up in the hills in Bel Air. And what happened is it was really strange for me because it's like that person didn't even know that they were gone. They're just in oblivion. And that often happens where disincarnate souls, meaning a person who's wandering like that, may not even know that they're dead. There's no time. So I actually got her, I had to force her off into another dimension. And, you know, listening to that, people go, wow, how do you know you did that?
Yeah.
Well, the results was they didn't have any more phenomena. So whether it was everyone's imagination or reality, the reality is just 7 maids. Of course, we never did get to test them, but we never had any more problems. There was never any more complaints. The interesting thing, though, there was some real strange, and I don't want to mention this because I don't want to expose anything in the air, but there was some real strange issues that were connected to the wife's side of the family that had happened later after that, which often is, I find, connected to karmic situations like that. Like, why would someone buy that house, or why would they be connected to that? And these are very mysterious things. I don't claim to know, but I can tell you the chart showed there was connectivity to this situation in some karmic way. That was very interesting, and some very crazy stuff had happened after that. Not at that location, but connected with the family. I'll just say that. Ooh. And that was pretty bizarre. So it's strange getting around these things because you're dealing with a reality that is not accepted in the normal world, but yet really happens. It's like what you talked about earlier. These things are real. I've had so many different instances where people have said, "My God, you know, the sun's out today, and it's really bizarre that could have happened the way it did." I said, "I know." It's
yeah, that's
a much
cool.
different world than it is.
But you did mention, and I'll get back to this point too before we take this caller here. But you did mention that something about ritual, and that's what I want to get a little discrepancy about here. This is the topic I want to stay on with you because I know there's an important lesson to learn here, but I think we've got, is this Josh again? Are you giving it another try?
I'm giving it another shot, guys.
All right, what do you got?
It's the sunrise and the sunset.
Oh man, come on. It's related. It's related to that, but you're getting closer. Was that a 4? Are you hitting 4s on me? That was definitely a 4. Are you mad?
All right. I'm not mad.
All right, brother.
Wait, did I say a 4?
No, I was just saying you hit the phone. I was making a joke.
Gotcha. All right. Also, Jeff, it sounds like that thing you were talking about, it kind of reminded me of that story Doskalo said about his gambler friend who didn't remember that he was dead. So.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of, the other book I mentioned last radio show was Dr. Carl Wickland's 30 Years Among the Dead. Most of them don't know they're dead. Or they wouldn't be trapped here.
I'm going to let you guys go. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but
all right, brother.
Listening. Thanks so much for your.
Keep guessing. I bet you're going to win the shirt. You're going to be the one that actually does it. All right. Let's see. Dan from Chicago. Are you guessing the riddle, or do you got a question for Jeff?
I wanted to guess the riddle.
What is it? What do you got?
Is it a shadow?
Oh man, you got it, dude. You got yourself a free Lighting the Void t-shirt. Congratulations. There you go. Poor Josh. He was trying real hard, too. He was getting closer. Yeah. So that's it, man. You did it. I'm happy because I was going to get really upset if nobody guessed that, right? Like, come on. Somebody's got to guess this thing for real. But that's yeah, great. So, yeah, that's a very good job. What gave it away? Which part of it gave it away?
I think it was your hints, because you said
the hints.
You see it on the ground. You can only see it with the light. And it said something about you need a being to exist, so you need a being to cast the shadow.
Right, yeah. So you got, man, you beat the Riddler, dude.
All right.
Congratulations. So you're going to get that free t-shirt. And I got your contact info, too. And just send me what size, and I'll send it out to you, brother.
Sounds good. Great show, also.
Yeah. Well, it's always a good show when we got Jeff here. Makes it easy, right? But thanks for giving us a call, Dan. You ain't got any questions or anything before we go into break here?
The only thing that I could think of is a slight pushback on the magic stuff, and
Yeah.
I get it for sure. You know, like I know better than to play with grimoires and stuff, but I guess I don't know. There's like folk magic. There's just like visualization. There's manifestation, and that's just kind of my pushback. Like, is it all bad? Is it all dangerous? Or what is like the what distinguishes it for being the dangerous kind, you know?
Yeah, well, I'm going to get into that with Jeff, and I think we're going to all learn something from the man. And that's a good question. So thanks for asking. And great guest, by the way. Congratulations.
All right,
Yeah, that was
cool.
great.
Thanks.
All right, brother. We're going to take our break. We're going to get into this a little bit more. That's a good question, and I will bring that up too. And if you want to call in, share your experiences as well. If you've got an experience that you've had, let us know about it. We're here with Jeff Harman. Jeff Harman, Harman. It's Friday night, May the 17th. We're going to do this a few times a month. We're going to have Jeff on. By the way, if you go to his website and you get his services, you're going to get 10% off when you mention this radio show. That's pretty awesome. We'll be right back.
To Lighting the Void Radio.
And remember, if you'd like to learn one of life's most valuable secrets, just send $20 to the announcer in care of this station. And by return mail, you'll receive your very own copy of the exciting 1.5-page book entitled Why You Should Never Send Some Guy $20 Just Because He Asks You to over the radio.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of The Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Frozen Power. Yes, with Frozen Power, you don't need warm water to clean your laundry. You don't even need cold water. Just mix your laundry load with half a cup of Frozen Power's frozen cleaning crystals, stuff it all into your freezer, and the next morning your clothes will be clean and crisp. Really crisp. And you can throw away your clunky old dryer because with Frozen Power, you never dry, you thaw.
If you are interested in occult subjects, psychic abilities, symbols, tarot, witchcraft, magic, or anything similarly related, my book Occult Arcana will provide you with a truly objective overview of these topics and more. Written in anything but modern language, Occult Arcana was compiled to help researchers balance their quest for a better understanding of the meanings of and in such studies. Occult Arcana is available in softcover and digital form from www.thesecretteachings.info. All copies can also be autographed if requested. That's Occult Arcana from www.thesecretteachings.info.
This is Paranormal News. I'm John Jeter. Are those footprints of Yeti? The Indian Army claims it is so. They tweeted a picture of prints found by a mountaineering expedition team at a base camp in Nepal that measured nearly 3 feet long and 15 inches wide. The evidence was handed over for scientific evaluation. The Army says it matches earlier theories of the abdominal snowman. Yeti reportedly dwells in the Himalayas. Nepalese folklore describes the creature as furry and ape-like with a terrifying howl. In the 1950s, British explorer Eric Shipton claimed to have discovered abnormal footprints, and the government issued him a license to hunt it.
It was late in the afternoon on November the 8th, 1951, and Shipton and the expedition's Dr. Michael Ward were working on a glacier a couple of miles from here. And then suddenly they came across a set of huge footprints that went away from them down the glacier, and it left them completely mystified.
Despite sensationalized claims of his existence over the decades, Yeti is still largely unfounded. Connect with the news at ParanormalRadio.com. I'm John Jeter, and this is Paranormal News.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM. See you then.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. Congratulations to Dan from Chicago for winning the free T-shirt and beating the Riddler. Tonight, our guest host is Jeff Harman. Something we're going to do on Friday nights. Jeff will be here twice a month, and then we're going to have what I like to do is have other hosts from other shows that I like as well come on as well. So we got Jim Mallard coming on next week. And some more surprises. And I got to really give a big shout out to Don and Pacho and Blake and Barbara and Eric. We're getting booked up with guests, and that's what I wanted to see. And they're not just guests; they're guests that I think you guys are really going to like, and it really pertains to the subject matter that we talk about on this show. And speaking of which, Dan had a pretty good question, Jeff. That. You know, you were talking about this exorcism that you did, and you did mention certain rituals and stuff that you didn't really go into specifics about what it was, but you are pretty pertinent in your message to warn us against things like certain types of ritual magic and sigils and stuff. And so I kind of wanted to play a little bit of devil's advocate here with you and just, I guess, shoot this out so we all can learn something from you. My first question would be, what types of ritual magic are okay? Because you did say earlier you did a couple of rituals before you did this exorcism, if you remember correctly.
Yeah, I do. And, I want to say something. First off, I in no way ever want to be put in a position where I tell anybody what to do or what I have an opinion, just like everyone has an opinion, and everyone has a right to pursue what they want to pursue. I think the only thing I like to do is just mention that it really comes down to words. The minute you say trigger words like magic, like ritual, like, any of those kind of things, they, I think, have such a hammered psychological kind of darkness to them from what the religions have done. I mean, the religions, and that's maybe why I'm reacting to that a little psychologically, because any time you say the word magic, that's what a lot of people like to process. Oh, they do magic. Oh, they're bad. Or they're doing Satanism on all this kind of stuff. So I always kind of shy away from those words because people love to charge you with that. Like, oh, you're doing something, So, but let's face it, anyone who goes into any religion, those are rituals, and they're working a sense of magic too. You could say it's white magic. You could say whatever. Healers. I mean, again, I was trying to emphasize that earlier today. I think getting out of bed and just functioning as a human being is a magical act. I mean, look at a bird fly. I mean, that's pretty magical. They're not doing anything but eating food just like us, no one's fueling them up and all that. So I think life is magic and creation is magic in the highest sense. I mean, science cannot even tell us why the solar system does what it does. No one can explain why the Earth is hanging at the degree it's hanging at and why we have seasons. It's not gravity. So I didn't mean in any way before to chastise anybody from doing whatever they do. I mean, that's their business, and I'm not here to tell anybody what's right or wrong, nor is it my place. I would just say that it's the people that I've observed, gotten involved with, or done readings who do things like goetic magic, Enochian magic, and start doing anything playing around with summoning spirits and that kind of thing. It's very dangerous. I had mentioned even Dr. Carl Wickland, and I think great caution has to be used with any of this kind of stuff. I've personally gotten very sick and had a lot of problems clearing places, and I'm very cautious. I have a constitution that's not as robust for that kind of stuff as other people, and I know, Clint Eastwood always said a really great line in Dirty Harry. He says, "A person or a man has to know his limitations," and I think that's something that's really wise when people get involved with clearings or clearing people. I've got some clients that I really respect who are absolutely amazing at clearing people and taking entities off of people. I have one, I just love her. I've been seeing her for 25 years, and her and I will say, "Did you see that?" "Oh, yeah." And it's like bats in the belfry, the stuff clearing off of you. So when I say ritual, there is certain, and I think you mentioned this, one that I really like a lot is a very ancient ritual. It's using it's spirit over matter, which is also known as a banishing pentagram. And then there's the Star of David, which is also known as a hexagram. See, even those words, you say pentagram, they're doing witchery and magic and black magic. It's not that at all, though they're right. An inverted pentagram is matter over spirit. But this geometry, I guess I'm pretty secret, and I'm also pretty laid back because people love to use this stuff against you. And I've had, again, the blessing of talking to a lot of people in religions, and they're very close to the vest too. They don't like to talk about it because people tend to react to, it's almost like politics. If you say anything, it's trigger words. Yeah. So, but rituals that like banishing is very, very powerful when you use the 4 archangels, Archangel Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Oriel. And of course, you had mentioned, Joe, the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagramation, which is really very sacred geometry that banishes things from the earth to spirit, or to God, if you will, and you drive it out using certain names and God's names in it. This isn't black magic. This is very holy stuff. And what's happened is, and I do fault some of the religions for this, is it's now gotten to the point where anyone who wants to practice something outside of stand up, sit down, kneel, stand up, sit down, or kneel, or just receive information from one person in a pulpit is now criticized. And I have a big problem with that because every one of us, and including the gentleman Dan before, has a total right to do whatever they want to do, especially if it's something they believe in and they're not hurting somebody else. And I think some of your most powerful healers are doing, look at Daskalos. Look at the rituals that they did. Mm-hmm. They were blessing things. They had the crucifix in there. They were doing all kinds of things. And Daskalos would use the hexagram, which is also more appropriate. The better word is the Star of David. See, that one there doesn't have a stigmatism to it. But the minute you say words like pentagram or hexagram, it's the work of the devil, and it's really irritating to me. So, that's why I am very careful, especially, we're broadcasting live and somebody will take this, and I'm always that's why, again, I do like Daskalos, because he is smart enough not to go there. And yet the Magus of Strovolos exposed that he did go there, but he went there in a very sacred, holy way. Listen to some of the stories in that book where the priests in Strovolos had actually accosted Daskalos and said, "We know you're a worshiper of the devil." And they took him in and made him swear on a Bible that he believed in God. And of course he did. And I think the phone rang, and it was their boss, the archbishop. And he asked them, "What are you guys doing right now?" "Well, we're interrogating that devil worshiper, Daskalos, the Magus of Strovolos." And he says, "You fools, I take classes with him. Let him go." See, this is how people get. And, it's like a witch hunt, literally. And you find that the human race has always been so harsh against each other. I mean, you look at some of the stuff we see going on in politics right now, and it's been going on forever. It's nothing new. We just have a camera planted in front of everything right now.
Yes,
so
sir.
it's a tough thing to be in this world and stand for something and not be ridiculed for it or chastised for it. And, there's always someone out there looking to prosecute you. That's why I think if people are doing healing or spiritual work and helping people, it's great. And call it what you want. I just find words like magic and ritual are trigger words. That's all. And I do think ritual magic, meaning, and again, there's those words again, where people are doing goetic and summoning spirit. That stuff is extremely dangerous. But other things that people do, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Banishing,
studying for an exam is
right.
Yeah,
they're good.
So is invoking stuff like invoking healing light or angels or praying for someone. There is overwhelming evidence. When I was in Tucson, I gave a talk at IONS, which is Institute of Noetic Sciences.
Oh, nice.
Edgar Mitchell started that. And I had this wonderful talk, and there was so many great people who would come out of the woodworks, but they wouldn't do it. See, like even people calling in tonight, they're apprehensive to be outspoken, because what happens is you get prosecuted. Oh, well, so-and-so had an opinion. And that's what I found. Like a lot of people wouldn't talk, but after the talk, they would come up and say, "Yeah, I really like this particular issue, or I do this, or I do healing work like this." But they don't want to be exposed, because oftentimes, you're drugged through the streets, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I would never do that to anybody that called in, and I see what you're saying, right? Like, I see all these listeners, because I can look into the, the real-time stats, and I see them what states they're from and where they're listening from. And we got listeners from England, Australia, East Coast, West Coast, Pacific Northwest, the desert, and I'm thinking, man, you guys, but I see what you're saying, because I've done that at conferences. Like, if you sit at a conference and somebody does a really good speech, and you really connect with what they're saying, and the guy will say, "Anybody got any questions?" Right? And you raise your hand. You don't want to raise your hand because you don't want to say something wrong, or you don't want them to correct you and look stupid, or you feel like you look stupid. I don't know. Maybe I need to be better on the phone.
Yeah. Well, it's a tough thing, because even doing a radio show like this, I've had all my life, I've had people, well, astrology, and I think one of the best examples is what's happened with the Roman Catholic Church. They have absolutely made astrology or any divinatory method just the work of the devil, cut and dried carte blanche. And it's been that way for a long time. Now, I see their point, because they were actually trying to dissuade ritual magic. And when you look at many things in the past that are associated with religions, there was a lot of it. But they're doing rituals too. So is many different types of religions. I mean, everything we do every day, a habit is a ritual, if you will. And,
there's a pastor in Zimbabwe that's kissing women to exorcise demons. I mean, come on now.
Who knows? Maybe he's getting a result.
He's not kissing dudes, though, It said specifically women.
Well, and that's the other problem. There's always abuses, Like I've had very rare, but once in a while I'll get instances where people really will try and prosecute you. It's just crazy. And, I say, hey, if you're coming at it in a spirit of trying to help someone and you're not doing anything to hurt anybody, then, that's great. It's gotten to the point now where people don't even want to stop and help someone on the road because they're afraid they're going to get prosecuted by the attorney if something happens and it goes wrong. It's becoming a world, and it has been for a long time, where people are afraid because they're going to get prosecuted.
Yeah, and another thing too, I think that's happening, and this is what I've noticed, is people, if they feel like they got a question, or they don't agree with somebody, that they're going to be looked down upon. They even get prosecuted as, oh, well, man, you're just being negative. But now look, here's the deal. If an atom bomb's going to land on your head and you say, man, an atom bomb's coming in, you don't say, dude, don't be negative. I mean, sometimes you got to really be a skeptic and question things and look at stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. And anybody that does that, I think anybody that says, well, you're just being now, there are people that are just straight up buttheads, right? They're just always trying to find the wrong or skeptical. They're always trying to disprove stuff, debunk this, call somebody a liar. That's pretty negative. But when you have a question or you say, man, that's kind of hard to believe. Why did this happen? Well, I don't like negativity. Okay, well, now you're just kind of manipulating the fact that nobody can challenge what you're saying. You don't do that. But I've noticed that happens too in a lot of times, and then people don't want to be prosecuted or labeled negative either,
Yeah, well, it's the same thing with astrological readings. I never tell people, hey, you should do that. But there's enough people who do want to do it. And to me, it's an honor. I find that when I'm done and I hang up the phone, if I can give that person some insight and direction as to what's happening and give them a different viewpoint, then I feel I've done something. But it's not my place to tell anyone, nor is it anyone else's to tell people what to do. And like every day I really. I've always been trying to walk away from doing astrological readings, and I keep coming back. Because I was actually a skeptic of astrology when my mother first exposed it to me, and I said, come on, this stuff doesn't work. How can the planets have anything affecting on you? And she just said, well, before you debunk it, why don't you check it out? And I did. And this is what a lot of scientists, in fact, one of the most famous translators back in I think it was the 4th century, I don't know if he's one of the most famous, but he's certainly a very famous one, was a guy named Mashallah. He actually lived in Iraq, believe it or not, and it was with the House of Wisdom, and he was a rabbi, and he said, this astrology is the work of the devil. I'm not going to have anything to do with it. And they were doing translations back then, and he was said the same thing. Well, before you debunk it, why don't you take a look at it? And he did. And to his amazement, he said, wow, this is really a sacred science of the soul. And he became one of the most prolific translators of ancient documents out of Chaldea and Egypt and Greek and Arabic. And that's probably why we have a substantial body of work that he helped translate. It was called the House of Wisdom. And the other thing, there was a pope. His name was, I forget who it was. I have to look it up. But when he died, they found an entire translation of Firmicus Maternus under his bed, which is probably one of the more detailed expositions of Egyptian astrology and where a lot of the real stuff was coming from.
See, I knew those popes were hiding stuff in there.
All the time.
I knew it. Like I knew they got books. I think they got books in the Vatican that we just had, that probably come from the Library of Alexandria. We just don't know what they have.
Of course. Well, and you can see the same sensitivity. In fact, most of the real Kabbalistic stuff, they never wrote it down. And the exact reason why was prosecution. They were going to be held, they're sorcerers, or they're doing black magic and all this stuff, which, granted, some people do, and that stuff really does go on. but they were so worried about prosecution, they wouldn't write anything down. In fact, a great book for someone to check out is a book by Abraham Rabbi Abulafia. I think he was in the 12th century too. And to this day, some of his works are the most revered in terms of detailed ways to get in touch with angels and spiritual purifications and many secret societies that are very sacred still today. He's got a huge following. And that stuff I really like because this is really trying to purify your soul. And he was absolutely attacked by both Christianity and Judaism because of that.
So I wonder if you've ever looked at the outer work of the Golden Dawn. Now, I'm not talking about the inner work, and even the original Golden Dawn didn't really like the Goetia all that much, right? Like the outer order of the Golden Dawn, where they start you out doing banishing rituals, rose cross as you go through it, hexagrams, middle pillar, angelic.
That's all standard stuff, which actually came from a lot of people. If you
they
look
think
back
it came from the Golden Dawn.
Pythagoras. Oh yeah, the Golden Dawn. Golden Dawn started because A.E. Waite and Mathers found a bunch of these documents at a bookstall in London, and that was from a lady out of Germany.
Supposedly,
so this stuff
they said it's cipher manuscripts, right? But I don't believe their backstory. I just don't. I think it's kind of hidden. Like they're telling everybody they found these cipher manuscripts and these secret masters came and gave them the system. But it's, if you look at it, yeah, it's always been there, I think, like you're saying.
It's always been there. I mean, you look at the Rosicrucian documents, again, the Masonic, the Knights Templar, all those are very well known, but the Kabbalistic circles were much more secret. They would not write anything down. They were very careful. One that I like a lot, he was known as the Ari, and another one was known as Rabbi Luria. I mean, these people could read your souls as you walked by, and the Ari was blind, and he couldn't even see, never could see from birth, and yet he could tell people all about their karmic history and past lives. Very interesting stuff. And there's also rishis in India that I got to say, there's a lot of what they call fakers in India, where they, there's been movies done where you see they're faking how they're sitting above the ground and it's really on a stick. Yeah. But there are people like Daskalos, though Daskalos, I have to say, is more powerful than most. He really had a portion of command of the fourth hierarchy. See, that's the only thing I was trying to say is I'm not here to tell anybody what to do, but my experience, my opinion at least, is that we will never have power over the lower spirits or be able to manipulate any of the supernal beings unless we are backed by the upper divine angels. And that was the golden secret behind the true Kabbalah. And that was the only way, because human beings aren't smart enough. I can certainly say I'm not, to try and figure this stuff out. It's far beyond. Look at physics. I mean, they can't even, once you get past gravity, you get electromagnetism, and then what they call strong and weak physics. It's pretty much over. Western physicists don't believe in any of this stuff for the most part. They just don't. There was a guy in Tucson I was thinking about. I forget his name, but he was he did a lot of experiments where prayer groups, and they were actually able to measure changes in people's auras. Kirlian photography, which has, again, been debunked by a lot of people, is pretty amazing. I've got it here. In fact, I have some on my website showing the power of gemstones, and it's real.
Well,
you can't make this stuff up.
Let's, I want to ask you a few more questions about that. We're at the top of the hour, but let's go ahead and take this one phone call real quick, and then we'll go into the top of the hour. You're 360 area code. You're on the air with Jeff Harman. Who are we speaking with?
Hi, Joe. This is Yvonne calling.
Hi, Yvonne. Do you have a question for Jeff?
Yeah. Were you interested in a story type thing, or you wanted something real short?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Tell us your experience.
Yeah, okay, because nobody's calling in, so I said, well, this is a story, I think, Joe, that you were curious about, okay? And I didn't write to you about it because I really had to go back and reflect upon it. In 2006, it was a real banner year for me. I went to a family reunion. Just before going to a workshop in Oregon, I went through a Kundalini experience, okay? Mm-hmm. So from this family reunion, it raised a lot of questions in me, and stuff. And so in the fall, I was in my living room, and then I decided, I need to get something from the back bedroom, type thing. And I proceeded to walk to the bedroom, and just as I entered the little hallway outside of the bedroom, I heard this woman in a real panicky voice saying, "Where's my daughter? Where's my daughter?" Wow. And so, of course, that stopped me dead in the track because I live alone, Yeah. Well, I have a dog, type thing. And I just stopped, to figure out, well, what's going on here? She's really panicky and scared,
Sure.
Type thing. And then suddenly I collapsed onto the floor, Joe.
Oh, you passed out?
And
wow.
I didn't pass out. I just went somewhere.
Oh,
okay. Wow. I went, and from what I could see of the surroundings, it was the early 1900s.
So
it was like there was some.
You probably went into another dimension, I think, or something. That's kind of weird. I was just watching the Twilight Zone, their last episode. The new Twilight Zone. They were talking about that.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, I have been informed by those people who understand those things that I traverse the 5th and the 8th dimensions, Joe.
Really?
Okay. It's because of the kind of work I do. Okay. Type thing, and that's why I stay in solitude and quiet.
Yeah,
because I got enough. I mean, you know what I mean. I love my solitude and quiet. So anyway, I collapsed to the floor, found myself like in like early, maybe midday, after 10 o'clock, but before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I knew that I was in the early 1900s. They seemed like to be some kind of community bazaar or something. And the structures were like made of like square shape out of wood, and it was covered with canvas, The ground had grass, but it was a little bit dry, so it must have been in the summertime, and the sun was real bright, okay? So that's what happened. And it seems that I was just observing, at first, just seeing what was going on and stuff like that. And I could see people gathering at the distance, but I was more at the periphery of the activity. And then as I stood there, I saw a young teenage girl, I would say between the ages of 15, maybe 17 at the most, but young, very young. And she was Filipina, so I figured, well, I must be in the Philippines, type thing. And she was walking along. And then I observed two men, about in their late 20s and 30s. And they were following her. Okay?
Okay.
And so I was just observing, and then I suddenly became concerned because what they did was they pushed her into one of those unoccupied little tent things, and at that point.
So they were kidnapping her, you think?
They were pushing her in there, and I felt they were going to rape her or something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then at that moment, when I saw that action happen, suddenly I became that young woman, that young girl.
Oh man!
And,
wow!
And so I became her for that moment, and I experienced what she experienced. Okay.
Pretty trippy stuff there. How did you get out of it?
Yeah, really trippy. Pardon me?
How did you get out of it? Did you wake up the next day, or did you wake up hours later?
No, and then as soon as I went through that experience and saw what she went through and experienced the horror, the pain, the fear, then boom, I was back home.
My goodness.
I mean, I was back in my, my thing, and I was kind of like a little shaky, getting back up from the floor. But what that answered for me, based upon my family reunion, what had happened to my great-grandmother in relationship to her daughter, who was my grandmother. Okay? Because we don't have any history of my paternal great-grandmother. For some reason, my grandmother was raised by somebody else, and they never got to know each other. I don't even know my great-grandmother's name.
Wow. Well, listen,
Okay.
we've got to go into the break.
It almost
but
looks like you vicariously shared her. You shared her experience.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, but what that accomplished is that they were able to find each other on the other side.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is pretty trippy.
Before they were in separate places.
We've got to stop
But I'm
right
a
there and take this
psychopath.
break.
Yeah.
Yvonne, thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Wow,
I really
great story.
appreciate that. Thank you. We'll be right back
thank
with
you.
Jeff Harman. Calling numbers 1-800-588-0335 if you want to call in. That was a pretty trippy story, man. What do you think about that, Jeff?
Yeah, that was cool. I really think I actually looked at the chart when she was talking about that, and I think she did. I think she was sharing kind of a psychic
connection.
A connection with her relative from another time. Yeah, that's what it looked like.
1-800-588-0335. This is Lighting the Void. I'm Joe Roop with guest co-host Jeff Harman. We'll be right back.
This is Al. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing this journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much for a delightful evening. Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
All right, everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, my old china plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Lighting the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your northern self and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you be the Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Get the Tea is the #1 cleansing tea in America. We cleanse you with organic ingredients, and when used daily, you can increase your energy. Cleanse from intruders that set up camp in your colon. Cleanse your colon and feel the difference. Colon cleanses can be uncomfortable. Not Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea is mild yet truly effective. Cleanse your insides every day. Easy to make, easy to use, and feel the results. Are you sold? Okay, then here's how to order. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Look for our specials on the front page. Get the Tea also carries top-rated supplements for those who care about their health. Naturally. Again, log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. And feel the results. And for those of you that arm yourself with information, come to our webinar every other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's every other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific. You can sign up at GetTheTea.com. theFringeFM.com.
Follow The Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at The Fringe FM. Introducing Shadow Light Tarot from Waking Canvas, The Fringe FM's new contributing artist, Eric Tisi. This hand-illustrated black and white self-published deck serves as a reinvention of the tarot, never before witnessed. Each of the several suits of this 88-card deck lineup form an infinite panoramic scene. Even the included visual companion guidebook is entirely hand-illustrated, cover to cover, with beautiful visuals and esoteric symbols and artwork. The newly released deck comes in a custom magnetic box with its own travel pouch. The Shadow Light Tarot Premium Deck and its travel-sized mini deck Wonderlight Tarot are both available now from WakingCanvas.com. If you use the code word FRINGE, that's F-R-I-N-G-E at checkout, you'll receive an extra 10% off your entire order. To discover more, including a free reading and time lapses of all the illustrated artwork, make your way over to WakingCanvas.com today. That's WakingCanvas.com.
Well, that was a pretty fascinating story by Yvonne. If you're just joining us, I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void live on the Fringe FM. We're here with guest host Jeff Harman. We do this every Friday night, open line, share your experience, contests. I want to congratulate again Dan for winning the riddle. He guessed it. It was shadows. And so he's going to win a free Lighting the Void t-shirt. Also, don't forget, too, that Jeff has given a discount code, 10%, for anybody that mentions this show. And you go to jeffharman.com, Harman. You sign up for his services. I'm pretty sure someone's asking me if you take credit cards. I'm pretty sure you take everything, don't you, as far as payment goes?
Yeah, everything.
Yeah,
Yep.
So you get 10% off. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And also, if you would, if you like to support the show, you can. I do want to thank all of you guys that have supported this month. Monday, I'll make sure I give everybody a shout out. There's a PayPal there. You can do. You can use the Amazon portal as well. You can also grab a T-shirt, hat, or whatever. You can also get right now too. Another special I'm giving away is if you go to preparewiththefringe.com and you get any order. It doesn't have to be food. It could be the wind-up radios, the survival equipment, the air filters, the water purification, the heirloom seeds, any of that stuff. If you do an order for $100 or more, we'll also give you a free Lighting the Void T-shirt. So. All of the things that we promote on here are, of course, to be honest with you, I have to be honest, most of the support we get on the show is from donations. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't survive. But the stuff that I do promote, I do believe in. Ronnie's stuff, preparewiththefringe.com, and our T-shirts too, and the people that come on and offer their services like Jeff, because there's 1,000,001 astrologers out there, and you really got to dig through a lot to get to a really good astrologer that can actually help change your life in good ways. And we've done that. And this ain't the only radio show you've been on, but you were, again, one of the first people, Jeff, that I got to interview. And I will say this, when I first started doing broadcasting, Jeff, I thought, man, I don't know if I want to do this, like this whole guest thing and doing what everybody else is doing. But that night you came on, I really knew that this is what I wanted to do, because I started getting some of the answers that I really cared about. It wasn't about the show. It was about the questions that I really cared about. And you were nailing that stuff. And I've enjoyed talking to you ever since.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Well, that's the big thing. I really, there's so many things we can all do with our lives. And, if you're contributing to society or helping someone, then it's good. That's I don't care if you're a carpenter or a plumber or helping someone in some other modality. As long as we're doing something to help somebody, then that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And when Yvonne came on and shared her story, it sounds to me, it's so trippy she's talking about that, because I've been watching the new, they came out with the new Twilight Zone, right? They brought it back. Yeah. And I've been watching that. And the last episode was about, I don't want to spoil it, but it was about people that move through dimensions and time traveling, and she gets on and talks about that. And then you said during the break that you cast another interrogation chart, which is something I'm fascinated by.
Yeah, I think she was actually vicariously interacting with one of her ancestors and was really experiencing that. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, so you guys have to understand too, and I know you want me to get to your questions in the chat rooms. There's a lot going on behind these screens, and when a phone call comes in, I have to take that text in. I'm not saying the chat is last, but it is the last thing I look at because it's not, we want to be as interactive as we can here. But I do have a question in the chat room that says, can you ask Jeff, this is the Fringe FM chat over on the fringe.fm. Can you ask Jeff's opinion on the Lords of Karma, also known as Archons? I have read in an article written by Cameron Day about the sovereignty of our soul. Has he read this article, or does he know anything about this? The Lords of Karma or Archons?
Yeah, that's a really cool question. There's a lot of different stuff on that. They actually say the Shem HaMephorash, which is the 72 angels of Exodus, interplay on that. And the Vedantic literature also talks about it. They actually call them Lords of Destinies. Yeah, I've heard them called Archons. I've heard them called Legion. There's many different names of these, but there seems to be clearly a hierarchical set of angels or spirits, if you will, that interact with us on this plane, and they appear to be delivering karmas. They actually say there's 4 general categories of karmas in the Vedantic literature. There's karmas that we are absolutely here to bear. It's with our ancestors. It's with our own soul. Some of them may be good. Some of them may not be. Then there's karmas here that we can alter. And then there's another class of karmas that we can create on our own. And then there's stuff that we choose to interact with others that we're actually, it's a new type of creation. So there's actual specific names to them. But I really believe that that's true. And I have never seen any definitive explanation of all of them, because I think there's fragments. The Shem HaMephorash is one. They call them Lords of Destiny in the Vedantic literature, and it certainly seems to be there. I have a couple of texts. Dr. Rudd actually assembled something that's parallel, and so do the Greeks and the Egyptians. They actually have the sidereal degrees of every single sidereal degree of the zodiacs, where there's angels ruling them. And that is something I have found so spot on. Like, every person I do a reading with, I look at these angels, and if that doesn't match that person, I know the birth time probably isn't accurate. And when it's accurate, oh my God, it's so accurate, it's creepy. And the value of that is it often helps people find where their destiny is or what their true purpose is. And I'm always, I like to spend about 30 to 40 minutes preparing for a reading, which is a lot of work. And I write out a whole page of notes. And that's definitely one of the things I look at, is some of these karmic angelic forces in the chart. The Vedic astrology has all these what we call vargas. Their varga means divisions. They divided the zodiac into all these minute little portions, and they're called a varga chart. And it's pretty trippy stuff. You can actually see indicators for the soul, the lower soul, the mid soul, the upper soul. It's really pretty bizarre stuff that gives you good insight on it. I hope that helps answer the question, because it's not an easy one to answer.
Sure. Yeah, we talked about that with and Gnosticism too, with like Miguel Conner, and we did some. There's different forms, I guess you could say, or different little sects of Gnosticism that talk about archons and things like that. And I mean, these are types of things. Look, we can't scientifically prove this stuff, but I think Jeff would agree, based on a little bit of belief. And anytime you delve into this stuff, you're taking a little bit of risk. Like, for example, when you first started looking into the works of Daskalos, and let's say your first exorcism, which we've never talked about, weren't you a little bit, at least bit going, okay, I hope I know what I'm doing here? And then, like after the experience of what happens, then
it's always, everyone is an individual. You're always, really trying to get as much help that you can when you do something like that.
A lot of people pretend, Jeff, that they know a lot of stuff, but the fact is, when you look out up at the sky at night, especially if you can really see all the stars, like through night vision goggles or whatever, and you know that there are so many unanswered questions out there, and they keep finding new stuff in space, like these radio blasts. Now they just found, I think Corbin Black covered this at the Ancient Code, where they found this bullet that was going through space. So they have that picture of the space-time continuum, right? And they saw this bullet 1 million times the mass of the sun recently blasted an enormous hole in our galaxy's stellar stream, the Milky Way. And they used a 3D map of our galaxy. And it's just, have you seen that?
No, I have not.
They don't know what it is. But they're saying it's much more massive than a star. It's something like 1 million times the mass of the sun. So there's just no stars of that mass, period. So they're saying we can rule out that this is a star. And if it were a black hole, it would be a supermassive black hole of the kind we find at the center of our galaxy. So they don't know what this thing is. All they know is they can spot it just ripping a hole through the Milky Way right now. And they're just now taking pictures of this, right? So we don't
There's so
have
much
the answers.
we don't know.
Yeah.
And that's, great you're bringing that up, because that's one of the postures I like to take is, in readings, a lot of times people will deify me, and I'm like, please don't, because I studied hard and I worked hard, but I don't know everything. No one does. And I think humility is really a major trait. Most of the really advanced healers that I know, they're very humble. They realize, and I think that kind of parallels some of the magic stuff we were talking about before. Magic tends to make people think they know a lot, and then they get arrogant, and that's exactly the dangers. There's an old saying that the more humble one is, the more respectful for the divine one is, the more they're likely to get the secrets, because the human mind is not that advanced. It just is not. I can certainly say mine isn't. None of us are, if we're honest. Really, I mean, intellectualism will get you so far, and then you hit the wall. And even with astrology, I am always humbled at how there's nobody's chart that's the same, and everyone is unique completely. No one will have the same progression, same transit, same primary directions ever. I mean, it's never the same, and it's the same thing with doing this kind of work. You got to really go in with confidence, but yet a lot of awareness that you need divine help. And
sure,
I've actually had entities laughing at me and trying to undermine my confidence, where they literally would. It's interesting. You mentioned how you had books flying. Let me tell you a story that I didn't know about. In Burbank, I might have told the story before, but I'll tell it again. A friend who owns an apartment complex had a lot of trouble there, and there was a lot of drugs and trouble, and he finally got them out, and the place was really trash. And he says, I just keep attracting bad people, and even though we're credit checking and so on and so forth, it just keeps coming up with bad people. He says, I really think this place has some bad energy. And I did an interrogation, and I said, I have to agree. I said, the chart supports that is absolutely true, that there's a lot of nasty energy. And I said, again, the 12th house has always hidden secret energies and entities. And it was pretty malefic. So I picked a time to go in there and do the clearing. And he's the one. He was outside. It was at night. And I always like to have the moon separating from malefic aspects and applying to benefics. That's one of the things they say kind of divinely helps a clearing. And I find that really is true. So I'm in there, and it was really unnerving because these entities, I could hear them saying, "Who the heck do you think you are? Who you think you have any power?" And it was just really demeaning. And part of that you question, is that really me, or is this something I'm imagining? But it was clearly happening. Well, finally, I just kept really bearing down on clearing this place with a lot of force. And it was probably about 20 minutes later, there was a flash down by my right knee, and that was it. The place cleared, at least the first place I was working at. And when I came outside, the owner said, "Jeff," he says, "you're finally coming out." He says, "The door was banging." And he said, "There's no wind." He says, "I kept hearing the screen door bang." And he says, "I always thought you were coming out." And I didn't even know it. And so paranormal stuff like this, energy does do that. That's why I've seen things move or have, strange phenomena like that. And I found in another place in that same apartment, there was a suicide with a shotgun, and that person was still there. That happened to me in another place. So trippy. I was in this house. It was a very expensive house down in Southern California that wasn't selling. And the owner said to me, "What can I do?" And I said, "Well, electional astrology is really helpful for selling real estate. And I've done this a lot." And she said, "Well, how do I do it?" I said, "Well, cancel the contract, or when it runs out, call me, and then I'll give you another electional time to sign the contract and put it back on the market." And but in the interim, I said, she said, "This house has got a lot of weird energy." So I went down there. She hired me to come down, and I did a clearing on it. And this was the trippiest, most visual I've ever had. Her husband had passed away in that house, I think about 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember the exact time. When I went into the room, the bedroom, and I was doing some clearing in there, I turned because I felt someone was watching. He was sitting on the bed. And I know what I saw. Yeah. And I mean, he was gone for 2 or 3 years. Now, people listening to this go, "Oh, how could you know that?" I know what I saw. And I've had stuff like this happen where disincarnates, their etheric energy is very strong. These are very powerful individuals. Again, if people want to read about evidence and proof, in my opinion, of this, Dr. Carl Wicklund, who was the psychiatrist who wrote 30 Years Among the Dead, just myriads of cases in there. And then Dr. Louise Ireland Fry is another one that's amazing. She wrote the book Freeing the Captives. Those are two of my more favorite books. She's an MD who literally got sick and tired of listening to, let's administer more medication. Let's see if there's something else causing this. And there's a lot of MDs. In fact, I just had lunch with a psychiatrist the other day. I don't want to mention names, but she's an amazing lady who's the same way. She's like, "Jeff, I'm a psychiatrist. I prescribe medications in certain cases." But she goes, "I know that, I'm helping people get cleared with this." But she has to be very careful. She could lose her license. That's why I'm not mentioning her name, because she said, "I'm an MD and I could lose my license if someone finds out that I'm doing this." You see what I'm saying? As a bona fide practice. So this is the danger. And the gentleman before, I think his name was Dan, he's right. I mean, he is right to push back because yes, there's a lot of wonderful things people can do. You can call them rituals. You can call them magic. You can call them practices. I'm just very leery of, the backlash of what people say. "Oh, they're doing magic." I mean, it's always left brain linear society has always been the enemy of anything that's outside of their dogma. And that's why I'm always very careful with that.
Well, there's two types of people too, I found. I think a lot of people, like, I would consider you an occultist, but that's just because I understand what it means. But if you go out in society, you might say, "Look, I'm a bit of a mystic," but whatever, right? So mystic doesn't have such a bad connotation as an occultist, right? But I know that you look for hidden stuff, and that's all occult means is hidden, and you look for that. So, but see, not only do you look for it, but and I just want to make this point real quick. Not only do you look for it, but you you actually practice it and tried some of it, and it was for the reason to help people and heal and get rid of things. There's this idea that, I'm an occultist because I read a lot of books and I understand things. Well, no, you study the occult. I guess someone would say you're an occultologist, but you can only intellectually
I really
understand
like
this stuff so much,
I love studying science and hidden energy and spiritual things, occult things. Yeah, it's very fascinating to me. I've always been interested in it. They're hidden forces. I had the honor of teaching a physics class back in the 80s. It was a school at a college, and I had a really great time because with physics, these are accepted scientific principles. I mean, we were doing physics of sound and psychoacoustics and room acoustics and cathedrals and recording studio things. It was all about audio, and that's accepted as long as you can stay in those realms where science can. It's kind of like the upper echelons of society. As long as it's accepted and you don't say anything outside of the confines of politically correct and all this, you're fine. But the minute you start going into occult stuff, or the minute you start going into hidden things, start talking about ghosts, or start talking about disincarnates, elementals, or clearing rituals, most will run for the hills. It's like the judge said to me, he says, hey, you cannot tell anybody about this, and who I am or where it's at or anything else. And I'm like, totally. And, and I can respect it. I mean, he may not get elected again if he was ever exposed.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
They could put thumb screws on me and I'd never say his name,
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And it's like another, we got to take our last break. But, you can study this stuff till the cows come home, and know your books in and out, but you can't. I think there's a whole different light when you actually have an experience, when you might take a risk and try something.
And anybody can. Anybody's capable of doing this stuff. It's all what your perception of reality is.
Right. Exactly. We'll be right back with Jeff Harman. You guys don't go anywhere.
Is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Who were the real ancient Egyptians? What is it about ancient Egypt that captivates us all? The critically acclaimed series Magical Egypt is back with all new episodes. Let Chance Gardner and company take you on another adventure through Magical Egypt in the new series Magical Egypt 2. Magical Egypt 2 attempts a forensic reconstruction of the science of the ancients through a study of ancient aesthetics. Also, the best researchers and authors in the field like John Anthony West, Graham Hancock, Laird Scranton, Robert Bouval, Lon Maladuquette, Aaron Sheik, and more join together to explore the topics of the esoteric and the hidden messages of the ancient Egyptians. Just go to magicalegypt.com right now and put in the code word FRINGE and get 10% off any download or order, including the groundbreaking original Magical Egypt series, as well as the new episodes in Magical Egypt 2. Also, check out the great work and the companion series at magicalegypt.com. Click the banner on the Fringe FM or go to magicalegypt.com and use the code word FRINGE and get 10% off your order today while it lasts.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hello, this is Vance Nesbitt. Take the time to expand your mind by listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop right here on the Fringe FM.
Follow the Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at the Fringe FM.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Lighting the Void is proud to announce Mind and Magic's Protection and Defense course for protection from magical and psychic attacks. This is not a joke. Magic practitioners are on the rise, and with that comes attacks from baneful or black magicians that try to harm or hurt others for their own selfish reasons. If you are not a believer in psychic attacks, then this isn't for you. If you are, and you want the power to defend yourself and your family and home, then I highly suggest you grab Freighter Xavier's Protection and Defense course. In this course, you will learn how to tell if you are under attack from a natural source or if an individual is attacking you. The 4 forms of curses and attacks. How to remove self-imposed curses. The correct way to cleanse your home from negativity or malevolent entities. How to make your own holy water. What you should always keep near or under your bed. Herbs that banish negativity and promote purity. The most powerful banishing rituals on the planet. And for those that seem to want to harm you the most, how to put your enemies in a hell pit of their own making. You can also learn protection against shadow people and other entities. Or are you just in a bad planetary alignment? Even how to get rid of an enemy using a tic-tac box. It does not matter what your faith or belief is, this will work. Click the banner on the website at lightingthevoid.com or go to lightingthevoid.com/Xavier.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com.
Want to know what's on The Fringe FM? Check out our schedule at thefringe.fm.
Pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada.
Thank you so much, Kurt. Yeah, this is Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. We're getting towards the end of the program. Don't forget, after the program tonight, the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable will be on. And then we're going to move into the weekend. We've got Jeremy Scott, Michael Deacon. All of our weekend shows will be there as well. Quick announcement to make, too. Starting next Saturday, we're going to have a new host, Stephen Cambion, into the midnight hour. That will be on Saturday nights after Jeremy Scott. So more programs are coming. Right. So, yeah, Jeff, thanks for coming on the program. And earlier we were talking about this kind of back and forth thing about magic and the occult. And I feel like, you know, I'm addicted to reading books about the occult. I mean, you could put me in a library full of ancient texts and stuff, and I would probably live there. But I think most of the profound things that have spiritually enhanced my life have been from trying some of the stuff I learned. I got to be honest with you, or taking that risk, or stepping out, or doing that ritual, or doing that meditation, or whatever, and seeing what happens, and not being so afraid of it. And I'm not talking about Goetia. I've never done that. Just to let everybody know, I've never invoked or spoke to a demon, wrote anything down. Not that I care if you judge me for it or not. I've just never done it. But intellectualism, I think, can be a trap sometimes too, you know, where we're just feeding the brain. and we forget about feeding the spirit, you know?
Yeah, there's so much out there. You can really get lost in the labyrinth of things. It's some of it is good and some of it isn't. And, you know, that's what's interesting about rifling. I find the same thing in astrology. I mean, I have so many books. I mean, throw them on the fire. They're just not even that good. And some of them are books written to bring the author clients or some new method that is not that fantastic. And, you know, I say, bless their hearts, you know, I mean, they're doing what they're doing. But what I get really attracted to is the older stuff that is consistent. You see the same thing for several hundred years, all the way up, well, actually a lot longer than that. You see something almost 2,000 years old on plus, actually 2,400 years old. You got to say these are the same systems, and then everything changed in the 1800s, and now we have, you know, Pisces loves Aries, especially from the 1960s forward, and it's rooted in a much more sacred look at the path of the soul. So yeah, everyone's going to resonate with what they resonate with anyhow, you know. And
sure.
We all have things that are going to attract us to it.
Do you think it's partially like could be our ego when we feel like we've got the answers to everything and nobody else does? Like my form of occultism is better than yours, or when ego
is a dangerous thing no matter where I think you put it. I don't care if it's my Chevy's better than your Ford. I mean,
right, yeah.
Ego is
I don't
know.
know.
You got to kind of put in check.
Yeah, because I used to negate people's experiences when I thought that, oh man, that's just ridiculous, right? How can, I mean, nothing against anybody, but like say for instance, Yvonne's call, like back in the day, I used to think, man, there's no way she's traveling through dimensions. She's just making all this stuff up, right? Blah. Who am I to say that, really? I mean, if you really put yourself in check for a minute, you go, well, how do I know what happened to her? And what if it really did happen? And, you know, who's she going to talk to about it? Right.
Really blown my mind where I'm like, wow, this person's really powerful. And it shows up in the chart. And oftentimes, you know, you don't know who you're talking to because some people really are advanced. They're very advanced souls. And they can do things that we might not ever fathom, you know, in our realm. So I've become very respectful of the myriad of souls that are here. Some of them are very advanced.
I've got this friend that I wanted to ask you about who feels like they have this general curse on them, right? Like they've always felt cursed, and they think it's kind of in their family, and they've always felt it, and they wish they knew how they could get away from it. And they talked to me about this, and they're like, look, I know something's here. I just know it, man, because the worst things that just happen. And they're like, I want to be able to get rid of it. I wish somebody could get rid of this for me. And I started thinking, at some point, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but at some point, don't we have to be the ones to kind of step out and get rid of this stuff on our own a little bit?
Yeah, but I also think too, that's what's really cool. That's what attracted me to Vedic astrology. You can see it too in traditional Western. You can actually see those yogas because you can see the parents. There's what they call karmic control planets, and there's certain yogas in the chart. It's all about who we are and what the soul is here to kind of dissipate. And you can see when there's peak times when that's happening. And I find just making them aware that this is happening changes how it happens. It helps them to either react to it more appropriately or take measures. Like this gets into a whole realm called remedial measures. Remedial measures are certain prayers that you can do, certain mantras you could do. There's certain things you can do, like in tithing. And this gets really detailed in Vedic astrology. I was always kind of blown away with this. Like, if you have certain karmic yogas and you're in a certain dasha, there's certain people you want to like give to, or certain animals you want to be kind to, or certain things you want to do to mitigate the karmic effect. And this is the same thing in the old Kabbalistic stuff. They call it teshuvah. Teshuvah means clearance and repentance. There's actually very specific rituals I give people, which are really powerful, where you can clear family karmas. And it specifically says in here, like, anything that you've done on any incarnation, dimension, or existence, you want to have it cleared, and anything your ancestors or you have done inadvertently. Like this one prayer I've got, this is certainly not anything I designed. It's something that actually came right up out of ancient Chaldean Egypt from rabbinical literature. And it was used to purify the soul on a path to get in converse with angels. And it actually has 7 psalms in it. They're actually called the 7 Psalms of Teshuvah, which means clearance of the aura. There's an entire document dedicated to this. It's called the Sharei Teshuvah. Sharei means gates, the gates of clearance and repentance on the soul. And this is, again, stuff you just can't make up. And nowhere else have I found it that intact, other than in the old Kabbalistic documents. And it's quite interesting, the methods and rituals that are used, and prayer rituals that are used in this stuff. Very, very powerful stuff.
Oh,
and there's certain scripture you read.
They were definitely onto something. I agree with you. You know, it's like even the researchers of truth, Daniel, Joseph, and Dascalos, they have a tree of life it's different, but it looks kind of like the one the Kabbalists use. And when you get into all of the Kabbalistic texts and stuff, it's right. Good grief. And I always wonder about that, because I don't want to offend anybody. There's some really cool stuff in the Hindu texts, and there's something about the mystic Hebrew text, the ones that you're bringing up, where they're really digging into things that people have had real experiences with. And then when you look into magic, they all, even Freemasons, they're all using the Kabbalah in some form or fashion, right? So there's something there to it for sure.
Oh yeah. It's a structure that has kept intact through antiquity. And if you get past all the orthodox methods that have grown out of certain branches of that, it still holds true all the way back to some of the most ancient of texts. It's very interesting. Like the Sefer Ratziel, there's been several translations of that. There was one done in English, and I won't mention by who. It's a very good translation, but it might not have had the right source text. There was a gentleman and a woman that I had worked with about probably 25, 30 years ago. I still have the text. It's a very old version of it. And wow, I mean, you can feel how sacred this stuff was. It was all about all the different angels that ruled the earth from sunrise, noon, sunset, and midnight, how they would change at all the seasons and all the phases of the moon. Now, in our mundane world, we're balancing checkbooks, right? And trying to pay the bills and just live life. But it's really interesting to step out of the world, so to speak, and look into this world. Because if anybody wants to step back and say, hey, what would happen if the earth didn't keep rotating like it did? Or the synchronicity of the celestial bodies weren't kept intact. And we never think about that stuff. You know, NASA and science, well, we've got the trajectory of a rocket being fired off at this angle. And that's all science. And it's great. And it works. And it's very good that we have it. But there's a lot more going on behind the curtain of reality than we'll ever be able to figure out. And it's texts like that I find really enlightening, because when you read them, you just go, wow, man. You know, I mean, we don't think about that.
But could you say that the text, I mean, because text alone are fascinating, right? But could you say also, based on the text that you've read and some of your own experiences, that, I mean, if we took your experiences out of the equation, it was just the reading, would you have such a profound belief in what you're saying now?
I don't understand. How do you mean that?
Well, there's the intellectual thing when you read a text and you believe it just because the text makes sense. And then you have your own experience, right? So there's experience, like direct experience, kind of like I eat the apple, that's an experience, or I read about an apple. There's two different things, okay?
I see where you're going, yeah.
So in my mind, and I guess just in my life, I believe in a lot of the stuff and what you're saying because of my experience lines up with the text, not vice versa. So I'm wondering if you took your own experiences out of the equation and you were just doing intellectual reading, would you believe in this stuff just as much?
Well, that's a hard thing to answer because I do believe, but I also read a lot of texts I don't believe. I can see that they're not written from a place, at least for me, that I buy into. Like there's been a lot of texts that have come out, I'd say in the 13, 14, 15, 1600s that you could tell it's kind of someone egoically writing from a bunch of books that they found. There's other texts you could just feel it. And that's what I was alluding to before. You can just feel it. And I think people, every one of us are in our own kind of vibration of reality or our own, we all resonate. Even the most linear of people, they are repelled by certain people and they like other people. There's a resonance. We're all like tuning forks and we're all kind of vibrating at our own perception of reality. It may have a lot to do with our intellectual background in this lifetime. It also has a lot to do with who we are, I think, as a spirit and a soul, and what we've been exposed to, what we resonate with, and what we're repulsed by. So that's why the world is so damn diverse. And when I read a text, it's got to resonate with me, not just intellectually, but there's certain texts that you just feel it. Like the Magus of Strobolos, I really felt that. And there's other texts that I read, I can just tell, wow. Like when I read Bonatti, which again, he's one of my more favorite astrologers, and you can just tell this is a person who really knew what they were doing, not only by the intellectualism, but also the way it's written. It comes through.
Makes sense. A good answer. Makes sense. We got just a few minutes left here. We're quick phone calls from Portland area. Who are we speaking with on the air? Hello.
This is Ferris.
Who?
Ferris?
Eric.
No, Ferris.
Paris.
Sorry. Do we have a bad connection? Yeah, Ferris. That's right.
All right. What's
Ferris
up, man?
Bueller. Hey, so have you had a story about a vampire, like a real vampire?
No. Do you have one?
No. Yes. My
they can get pretty wicked. A lot of times the vampires, and I'm not talking about the Hollywood type. In other words, with the fangs and sucking blood out of people's necks. But there are a lot of entities that are very vampiric, meaning they suck on energy off of people.
I gotcha.
And a lot of really nasty disincarnates can be that way. I just had an encounter with one here in the last 6 months that was extremely vampiric. There was another one I did in New York. It was, I find a lot of times clearing buildings, if the heavily drugged people, like people that are really drugged, their consciousness is really wiped out, they can often become very vampiric.
Gotcha. I think all right. So you got a lot of background noise going on there, man. I don't know if your window's down or what's going on, but do you
No,
you by the beach or something?
I'm in a truck, but I do. No, I'm in a semi truck, but I do have. My grandmother actually had an encounter with I believe it was a vampire. She was in this in 1976, 77. I was a pretty small kid. Her and my mother were both in this bar, and she sat there and talked to this man for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like this. sitting there having drinks with him, and he kept trying to get her to leave with him. And make this story super short, she decided that she would not go. And as she went to take a sip, she went to take a sip of her drink, and as she looked up, he wasn't there.
Holy
so she
crap.
began asking the bartender, like, what, did you see where he went? And he's like, who went? There hasn't been anybody here the whole night.
Whoa, man, that sounds kind of demonic, too.
My mother was there, and she was wondering why my grandmother was by herself so long, sitting at the bar by herself rather than with her friends. And so my mom went over and asked her, she's like, well, what are you doing over here? Why don't you come over? And she goes, well, I was just talking to the guy. And she's like, no, there wasn't anybody there. And
wow.
So we think, so our understanding is probably a vampire, but yes, she decided not to go.
You could be right. I mean, it sounds like it was a pretty nasty entity, at least. Yeah.
Thanks for your call.
This stuff
Fascinating
exists.
story, man.
This stuff exists. Where are you driving on the semi?
I'm actually in Portland. But
great.
I'm just local. Yeah, I run for FedEx.
Oh, okay.
Trailers around.
Yeah, well, this stuff goes on. I mean, I've heard so many fascinating stories from people. I certainly don't claim to have experienced everything. There was a clearing I did in Sedona. I want to say this is probably like 2006 or 2007. And this was very similar but different to what you just explained. This lady had this man showing up, and I couldn't see it, but I felt it. And I know she was right. He kept showing up at the door, wanting her to come with him, and he would enter. Now, I did not ever physically see it. What I did detect is that place had some really trippy entities in it. And she ended up actually kind of going off the wall. She was actually incarcerated into a home, and they claimed that she had dementia because I was in contact with the family members. And I think she was kind of possessed by some entities. I actually had that happen to a relative of mine. She was, this poor lady was so possessed. She was actually talking out of her mind. It wasn't even her. And it was a disincarnate on her. Sometimes they're evil spirits too. There's a lot of stories of that. Where people are lured.
Well, listen, we got to get out of here. Thank you so much for your phone call. I appreciate that. Pretty harrowing experience.
Keep the rubber side down, my friend.
Thank you.
What?
Yes.
We got truck drivers on the road too, man, listening, and that's a freaky story. See, that stuff wigs me out.
Yeah, I believe him. I really do, because stuff like that, it rarely happens, but it does happen.
Well, listen, Jeff, we got to roll out of here. It'll be a little while before we have you back on, but a few weeks, and we'll have you back on another Friday night. And I know people are really going to look forward to it. You guys don't forget, go to the website, sign up for a reading. Get a hold of Jeff or Camille on the website. Jeff Harman, Harman, JeffHarman.com, and you'll get, if you mention this show, you'll get 10% off. And man, thank you so much again for coming on, Jeff. It's been a blast.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It was a great time.
It goes by quick, too. Every single Friday night here. We'll be back Monday night, Lighting the Void, live on the Fringe FM, 9 p.m. Pacific. I want to give a shout-out to the team. I want to give a shout-out to Don and Pancho, Blake, Dennis, and Eric, and Barbara. You guys are really helping move the show along. And all of you supporters out there, you people that donate. And if you want to support the show, please, if you can, don't think that somebody else is going to do it. We need all the help you can get. And for those of you that have helped, and if you can't, and you've helped with social media, thank you guys so much. And also don't forget the show is produced by the Fringe FM and can't be syndicated without written permission. The main music was by Chrome Oaks, Guitar Man by Bundy, other music by Kevin MacLeod, Space Station, and the public domain. If you're listening live, stay tuned for the Secret Teachings. We'll be back next Monday night. Good night, y'all.
expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised. We told you weeknights on the Fringe FM are now even better, and we mean it.
Do it live!
Where else can you hear the best shows and the best talent? Kick off your evening with our newest host, Alex Exum, live at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern. Hang out with me, Joe Roop, on Lighting the Void at 9 Pacific, midnight Eastern. Ryan Gable expands your mind on the secret teachings at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern. We're bringing the heat every single night. Fire it up, the Fringe FM.
Yahoy there! This is Gigi from Shift Happens. And holy shit, you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM. Hey, don't you dare turn that stuff.
Close the window, lock the door, start the party going up and on. Hey, hey.